Another year done, another priorities vlog done, just barely, just under the wire. So just like last year and the year before, this is the third year in a row that I've done this. I chose 12 books to make my priorities through the year, and then vlogged me reading those 12 books throughout the year. And in case you need a refresher or you missed that video where I selected my 12 and explained why, here they are. For the Wolf by Hannah Whitten, Black Leopard Red Wolf by Marlon James, Disquiet Gods by Christopher Rocchio, The Lost Queen by Signy Pike, The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton, Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, The 13th Child by Aaron A. Craig, Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, Anxious People by Friedrich Bachman, Fairy Tale by Stephen King, All's Well by Mona Awad, and Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. And without further ado, here's how I got on with all of those books. Next is a book that I was quite excited about. This one I actually haven't owned for a very long time. This is a recent acquisition, but since acquiring it, I heard very bad things and it made me go, whoa. So I'm not going to put my patrons through reading it. Not that I have that power, because I can propose it, but they have to vote for it. But anyway, we'll see. I'll read it. We'll see how it goes. And that is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. And this is a stunning, gorgeous edition from Waterstones. And I hope I like it, because it's Shakespeare inspired. This cover is stunning. We'll see. I did read A Study in Drowning in 2024. Oh, and I dropped it. Yeah, I read A Study in Drowning in 2024, and I didn't really like it that much. I didn't hate it, but I had some problems with it. And I've heard pretty much nothing but negative things about this. But there's a lot of books that people feel negatively about that I like. We'll see. Maybe I'll think it's genius and everyone's wrong, or I'll be like, oh yikes, yeah, that was really bad. So we'll find out. And book one is done. Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. If the title is not a clue, this is a retelling of the story of Macbeth, but from the perspective of Lady M herself. And when Shakespeare wrote about a naive 17-year-old French uppity princess who's just cast about to the whims of evil men, that story absolutely called out to be rewritten from a feminist perspective, recasting her as a powerful woman with agency. And oh wait, that's actually the other way around, isn't it? Yeah. What the fuck? Lady Macbeth, okay. I was intrigued, but this is not a character that was calling out to be given like a feminist retelling, because Lady Macbeth, the original, is already one of the greatest female characters ever written in the English language. So a story that celebrates that, or, centers that, sure. But really the only twist on that story that you could do is to undo that. You already have a character that's powerful with a great deal of agency, so if you're gonna do some kind of a reversal, the only way to go is down. So usually, one of my absolute favorite retellings that does this, of taking a character and doing feminism, is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, which takes the character of Elizabeth Lavenza from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and tells the whole story of Frankenstein from her perspective. And she, in the original, is like a wallflower character that isn't really, is not just not the protagonist, but is definitely kind of just a waifish girl off to the side. And to tell the story from her perspective, to recontextualize the whole thing from her perspective, is a brilliant move. But Lady Macbeth, the original, is already a girl boss. Lady Macbeth is one of the most, it doesn't need to be said, right? This is not a controversial take, that Lady Macbeth is incredibly written. It's not just for the time that it was written, but obviously for the time that it was written, but by today's standards, Lady Macbeth, the original, is an incredible female character. So looking at these blurbed reviews, I'm like, what? For example, it's, this one really is the one that stuck out to me. It says, Hail Queen, Ava Reid has done it again in this gothic atmospheric reclamation of the story of Lady Macbeth. Was Lady Macbeth in need of reclamation? Why? What part of the story was, why? And I'm not saying it's off the table, it's off limits, that you can't do Macbeth. Because it's already perfect. Although, kind of. And you could even do a story where Lady Macbeth goes from being this powerful character, like she is in the original, and instead making her a much less powerful, much more naive character. But then the point of that story is not to recast her as a girl boss. The point of that story would be to do something very different with it. And I don't know exactly what that would be, but I mean, that was certainly a thing you could do, and there could be something to that. Like, I'm just spitballing now, but thinking about how, like, Lady Macbeth is the villain, or one of the villains. Like, the protagonists of Macbeth are Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, but they are also unambiguously the villains of the story. So, to say that if you did, like, a reclamation of Lady Macbeth, where she's forced to go along with murder, and she didn't want to, and then history cast her as the villain that manipulated her husband because it was going to keep the reputation of Macbeth pure, or something like that. Like, if that's what we were going for, which, like, if someone was going to try to argue that that's what this was doing, no, absolutely not. I'm saying that you could do something like that, but again, the point of that story would not be that Lady Macbeth is a girl boss, because a character that is forced into that situation and is doing this, that, and the other, and is not, like, the one moving and shaking, she would be necessarily a weaker character, necessarily a character that is acting out the will of someone else, not acting out her own will. So you're gonna have to, like, sacrifice the girl bossness to make her innocent, which is a thing you could do. You could do that in a story. Here, we want to have our cake and eat it too, because Lady Macbeth, you know, this is a girl boss of the modern day. Feminism, patriarchy is evil. Let's go. But then we've decided to do it by taking the already powerful character of Lady Macbeth and instead making her a waifish, selfish, xenophobic pain in the ass that why? And then another big problem. So this is speculative. I mean, I guess the original Macbeth is also arguably speculative. It depends on how seriously you take the witch and the ghost, or the witches and the ghost. This is, like, straight up fantasy. Lady Macbeth herself has powers, and then, mild spoilers, there is shape-shifting of one of the characters, which was truly ridiculous. Like, why? But so one of the problems with historical fiction or historical fantasy that decides to take a story where in the original telling, or how history, like what went down in history, was that women were being harmed, women were being suppressed, women were being mistreated, with the excuse being given is that of witchcraft, that they have powers, that they've consorted with the devil, and so then for that reason they should be feared and punished. And so, because that's not a thing, IRL, we know that any woman that's accused of this is innocent. Like, we don't need any proof. It's because that's just not a thing. So if you're saying, oh, this woman is an evil witch, burn her, we know you just burned an innocent woman, because there's no such thing as witchcraft. So books and movies and whatever, and stories that decide to, again, have their cake and eat it too, where they're like, well, we want this to be speculative and girl bossy, so we're going to say, yes, they are witches, they really do have witch powers. But we're also still going to have the story about how these evil men are being so awful and harming these totally innocent women. Like, I'm not saying that's impossible. Actually, really recently, like at the end of 2024, I read Slewfoot by Brahm, and that was one of the things I called out about it, was that, like, that's a really, really hard, like, walk to walk, is because, like, the thing that makes these people from history, or these types of characters, tragic victims, is that they are innocent, that they were not witches. And so if you make them really witches, you kind of lose the moral high ground in the you're burning innocent women, when it's like, no, but they're right. Like, they are witches, though. Like, these men aren't good people, but they are correct. These are witches, like, you know? Whereas if it's like something like The Crucible, the play, they are not witches. They're just innocent women, you know? So it's like, anyway, I think you get what I mean. So here, we do that. So Lady Macbeth, this is, like, not a thing in the original Macbeth at all. This is completely Ava Reed's invention. So it's not even a thing of, like, let's recontextualize this thing that's already in it, because I'm not talking about the witches. I am not actually talking about the witches. What's done with the witches is also kind of weird, but Lady Macbeth herself, who, again, 17-year-old French girl, not powerful, mature, Scottish woman, but 17-year-old French waif, because fuck the Scottish. Like, we just despise the Scottish. Just cannot be overstated how much we are against Scotland in this book. Like, I don't know why you decided to pick Macbeth when you apparently despise Scotland. But okay, so 17-year-old Macbeth girl, she is so beautiful and so witchy that, like, it's kind of like a Medusa type situation, not full on, but like she has her face or her eyes veiled because if men look upon her, only men, women are safe from her powers, but if men look at her, they like fall victim to her spell and they can be compelled by her or whatever. Now, does she use these powers in a way that's really cool and cunning? No. The real Lady Macbeth with no witch powers is much more cool and cunning. But part 2 of that is that it's framed as all these evil men suppressing this woman, and like how, like, if we IRL veiled a woman's face because we were like, she's too pretty and it's witchcraft and she needs to be hidden, we'd be like, wow, men are the worst. But in the case of this book, she actually has powers. She actually can compel a man when her veil is lifted and they can see her eyes. So, again, I'm not saying the way she's treated in this book by the universally evil men, because, by the way, if you are a man, you are evil, and if you are a Scottish man, you are beyond saving. Because the only thing worse than a man is a Scottish man. So the men, who are mistreating her, because obviously they're men, so like, what else would you expect? When they veil her like this and are saying, oh, it's evil witchcraft, like, it has this tone again of like how these awful men are controlling this woman. But again, like, they're correct. They are right to be scared of her when she has that power. Like, I'm not saying that, like, if someone is powerful, the right thing to do is to, like, chain them up and say they shouldn't have access to that power. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they weren't wrong to be afraid of this. She absolutely has magic powers, and they are correct to be afraid of that. So, like, what point are we trying to make? Like, do you know what I'm saying? And then again, like, the Scottish women in this, like, the only thing that's, like, they're better only because they're not Scottish men. But Scottish women also can go fuck themselves. Because we only like the British and the French. Yeah. Like, I guess we pity the Scottish women for being born Scottish, and then we hate the Scottish men because they're men and then also Scottish. Why? I'm not going to say it's fine to hate Scotland because that's very weird. I don't know why you hate Scotland. But if you do hate Scotland, did you think this book would make people see it your way? Like, why would you do this? Like, if you just don't like Scotland, then just don't write about it. Or, unless, of course, like I said, you are writing this because you're hoping to, like, help people to see it from your point of view, that people will go, oh yeah, right, yeah, fuck Scotland. And it might help if you actually, like, Googled some stuff, you know, like how, like, geography, history, language, you know, so that we're clear on the people that we hate so much, to get them correct, you know? Because that's not great in here. I don't know enough to know everything that's wrong. I know enough to know that a lot of it is wrong. And then, okay, spoilers for the end of the book. It's a spoiler that you should absolutely see coming. You should absolutely guess that this is the case. If, one, you know the play, the Scottish play, Macbeth, if you know how that play goes, and if you've read 2 pages of this book so you can very clearly see how this is going, you should immediately guess where this is going to end. But I'm going to do a spoiler warning. Unlike last year, like, I'm going to do the spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled, then skip this part. I'll put something up. Yeah, so the twist in the original Scottish play, the original Macbeth, is this prophecy, and Macbeth thinks he's invincible because the prophecy is that, like, he will not be defeated until the forest rises to, like, up to, like, it comes to him, which forests obviously cannot do, and that no man born of woman will be able to kill him. So he's like, great, forests can't move, every man is born of a woman, I'm golden, no one can hurt me. And so the loopholes for both of these, the forest thing is, like, branches moving, and then the no man born of woman thing is that the man who kills him was, like, a C-section baby, basically, that he was untimely from his mother's womb ripped or whatever. So that's how Macbeth originally goes. And of course, like it's Shakespeare, so it's like we just accept the fact that while we are fighting with swords, we're going to volunteer information about how we were born so that the audience is clear on how this is a loophole. Because, you know, when you're on the battlefield, what is there to talk about besides the circumstances of your birth? So having a man tell Macbeth as he's killing him that he was untimely from his mother's womb ripped is like a totally normal thing to do. Anyway, one guess, before I say it, one guess what the twist is in this book. What we do here instead with no man born of woman is going to be able to kill him. What? Did you guess it? Did you guess it? Yeah, she is no man. We did the Éowyn. One, it's not really a twist because the prophecy didn't say that no woman can kill him. The prophecy was just talking about men. So this is in no way a loophole in that prophecy. I mean, I guess you could say the same thing for Lord of the Rings, which in fairness, Lord of the Rings is also, if you didn't know this, that's actually kind of why that's in Lord of the Rings. The whole, like, no man can kill me, I am no man. That is a little bit inspired by Macbeth, as well as the Ents. The Ent forest, the, like, walking trees in Lord of the Rings, that was a little bit inspired, actually a lot bit inspired by Macbeth, because Tolkien was disappointed when he saw Macbeth, that when this whole prophecy about the forest coming to him, that he was wanting the forest to, like, get up and walk. Like, how cool would that be? And instead, you know, it's like that the branches were removed or whatever, and he was really disappointed. So he made a walking forest in Lord of the Rings. Anyway, again, usually I find, like, feminist reimaginings and feminist retellings of classic stories, of mythological characters, etc., to be pretty shallow and pretty man-hatey and pretty, like, lacking in subtlety and have very little of anything interesting to say, like, just generally speaking. But in the case of Lady Macbeth, like, this isn't just like, oh, this is a really, like, shallow idea of what feminism is. This isn't even feminism. The original story, like, that's a way better example of feminism. Like, and, in Macbeth, the original, like I said earlier, Lady Macbeth and Macbeth, they are the protagonists of the play. They are the characters you are following, but they are the villains of the story. The play is not trying to convince you that what Macbeth and his wife are up to is great, is good, is morally justified. Like, they're scheming villainous characters. So here, Macbeth is evil and bad because he's a Scottish man. So, and yeah, no explanation needed. And Lady Macbeth, the French teenager, we are supposed to be rooting for her. This is, like, supposed to be a triumphant, great ending for her. Like, celebrating her. I guess that's what we mean by a reclamation of Lady Macbeth. But she is, also doing terrible things constantly. Like, she is not redeemable either. But what makes this bad is that the book wants you to root for her. Which is baffling. Like, again, it means that this is back to this isn't cozy fantasy. But this is, like, the problem with cozy fantasy, where it's like, it's not terrible to write characters that do terrible things or that believe terrible things or whatever. It's terrible when the book positions it as, like, this is good, though. Like, we're rooting for this. Yay. No. And, I think I've talked about Study in Drowning. If not, whatever. I read Study in Drowning, and I didn't really like it, and it gave me the ick on a lot of things, particularly xenophobia. Other things as well, but mainly the xenophobia. And my friend tried to, like... and succeeded in kind of convincing me that maybe there's some gray area and I'm being overly harsh about it and that, like, giving it the benefit of the doubt. So I was like, okay, like, I mean, it initially gave me the ick, but I guess a case could be made that this is, like, the way I'm interpreting it is a really bad faith interpretation and that it could be interpreted more positively. So I was like, I don't really like it that much, but okay, maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe I jumped the gun on assuming the worst. But having read this now and the extreme xenophobia here, like, again, what did Scotland do to you, Ava Reed? Like, now that's 2 for 2 that have xenophobia. And I've seen reviews. Those are the only Ava Reed books I've read. But I've seen reviews of the Wolf one, which I own. Someone gifted me the Wolf one, that said that she's, like, really weirdly, like, anti-Hungarians in that one, which, like, having read these 2, I do not find that difficult to believe. Yeah, I'm not going to read any more Ava Reed books. period, flat out. It's just obvious. No. Yeah, people said this was bad, and again, I was like, oh, this is gonna be one of those, like, shallow, girl bossy, like, feminism, but, like, uninteresting kind of books. And it is, but also all the other stuff. Wow, 0 stars if I could. Terrible start. But, here's to all the other books being at least better than that. Keeping up with the Shakespeare theme, next I have All's Well by Mona Awad. Mona Awad has been real hit and miss for me. I have enjoyed her writing. For both books of hers that I read, I really enjoyed her writing. But the story of Bunny worked so much better for me. I thought it was much more tightly plotted and kind of knew what it was doing better. I enjoyed that a lot more. Rouge, which I read last year, it started out pretty good, but I felt like it ultimately kind of like lost its way and fumbled the land. So anyway, All's Well, as far as I'm aware, is Mona Awad's either retelling or she's inspired by or in some way to do with Shakespeare's All's Well That Ends Well. And I mean, again, I'm a big Shakespeare nerd. I have enjoyed Mona Awad's writing, and I think that type of writing that she has, that kind of like dreamlike, bizarre, hard to pin down kind of writing style, does lend itself to trying to do something with Shakespeare, to do a retelling, to do an homage, to do that kind of a thing. And I think I heard this was also leaning towards horror, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, that's why I want to read it. That's why it's on this list. We'll see how it goes. All's Well. I didn't really think about this, or maybe I did, but I don't remember thinking about the fact that I had multiple Shakespeare retellings in my list. And for you, this clip is like directly after me finishing Lady Macbeth, but for me, it's been several months. I really hated Lady Macbeth. I've been struggling and trying to finish For the Wolf since the beginning of the year, and at some point there will be a clip of that. But it's like put me off making progress on reading my priorities. So I read Lady Macbeth in like January or whatever. It is May, and I just finished All's Well, and this is favorite of the year material. I will say the end, it wasn't like bad, it didn't like ruin it, but I was like riding high. I was like, this is 5 out of 5 stars. This is so good. This is incredible. This is amazing. And the ending, I was like, fine. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, I really don't like have a suggestion for like how I would have wanted it to end or how you could have ended it. Because I did keep wondering. I was like, I don't know how you're gonna end this. I can't wait to find out. And I feel like maybe Mona Awad also was kind of like, I'm gonna end it like this, I guess. It's like fine. It's not a bad ending. It's just, yeah, like I don't know how you end it. So I guess that's fine. Anyway, so yeah, not only is this a Shakespeare retelling, this turns out to actually be a Macbeth retelling. So this is named All's Well, and it's named for the Shakespeare play All's Well That Ends Well. And nominally, it does, it is about All's Well That Ends Well also, so like, I guess it's a retelling of both in some respects, but it's more so a retelling of Macbeth, while like in the text, it is talking about All's Well That Ends Well. But the events of the book are Macbeth, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't make sense if you haven't read it. So this follows a woman who is an ex-actress, and she had a terrible accident, and so she now is like permanently disabled by that. And ever since then, she has been working as a drama professor, because, you know, those who can't do teach is the old saying. So like people who knew her from before like got her that job basically, so she could still like do theater stuff, but she obviously like couldn't act anymore because acting is a quite physical, like stage acting is a quite physical thing, and she's just physically not able to do that. And so the play that she's putting on and insisting on putting on with her students, even though her students actually want to do Macbeth, and she's like, no, we're doing All's Well That Ends Well, and they're like, why? Literally, why? And it's not like that this is exactly why, because it's been years now, and she's put on plenty of other plays, but her accident happened when she was in All's Well. So she played the female lead in All's Well, and that's when her accident happened. So that plays into it a bit. But it's mainly, if you've ever read Mona Awad before, which I have, she has a very kind of surreal, hard to pin down, quietly horrifying kind of writing style. And that's the case here for sure. But like here, Bunny, I still don't, I think I liked Bunny, but I'm still not convinced I know what happened in Bunny. Rouge was good until it wasn't. It really, truly did not stick the landing. This, I was like, oh, this is it. This is where it's the most appropriate to use that style, which is just her always style. And I've read so many Shakespeare retellings, and 9 times out of 10, they are terrible. I never like them. Shouldn't say never, but I can't think of an example of one that I like besides this. I'm sure there is one. Specifically Shakespeare. There's retellings I can think of that I like. But yeah, I mean, most of the time when I read a Shakespeare retelling, I'm like, I want to ask the author, like, why? Like, did you feel called to tell this? Or did you just think that, like, making it a retelling of Shakespeare would give it name recognition and would sell copies? Like, it never feels like there was, like, motivation behind the choice to do the retelling. I'm always like, okay, so you recontextualize the events of the original play. Why? To what end? What do you think you're saying with it? Are you trying to say something with it? Like, what is the point of this? Because simply to tell the story in a different context isn't in itself a worthy endeavor. You know what I mean? Like, that could tease out some interesting new angles of the story. But I'm most of the time not convinced that that's what's happening. I'm just like, oh, you were like, what if I told this story, but it actually takes place here in this time and place? Ta! And you're like, okay, but why? What do you think this is doing? So this, oh, chef's kiss. This is so, so brilliant. Yes. I don't know how well you would like it if you are not familiar with Macbeth in particular. All's Well, it's like good to be familiar with All's Well, and it's not that well known a play, but I mean there's like quite a few moments when they're like playing out scenes from All's Well or referencing scenes from All's Well very directly. But it's because it's so direct that I don't even think you really do need to know anything, because they're putting on All's Well, the play. So they're talking about the plot of it. They're telling you what happens in All's Well. This kind of almost expects you not to know, or it gives you the information you would need to know. Whereas Macbeth, it kind of assumes you do know. And it keeps referencing Macbeth in ways that it's not necessarily directly telling you. And it's doing such an amazing job of using Macbeth, but not like leaning on Macbeth, if that makes sense. Like when it's doing Macbethy things, it never feels like, and we're doing Macbeth now. It's always like, oh my god, and this is Macbeth, is what's happening right now. Like, oh, that's so genius. Yeah, so good. So good. Had me kind of on the edge of my seat. It's like pretty, again, it's like this surreal, dreamlike, maybe nightmare-like kind of experience reading Mona Awad, and this is for sure this one. But Macbeth has that quality as well, because Macbeth has to do with like perception and madness and paranoia and all these kinds of things. So like those are like concepts that are like they make sense to put together. Yeah, I mean, I love this. But her writing style is this like kind of like weird, surreal kind of thing. So if that's not your jam, then I wouldn't recommend. If you're not familiar with Macbeth and you have no interest in becoming familiar with Macbeth, then I wouldn't recommend. But if you are, like if her writing style doesn't sound like an instant turnoff to you and you are familiar with Macbeth, this is how you do it. This is my new gold standard for like, you actually can do a Shakespeare retelling well, and Mona Awad has proven that to be the case. Absolutely nailed it. I mean, like, had a point to doing a retelling, and also in reading this, I was like, she gets it. She gets Macbeth. Like, I would absolutely trust Mona Awad to like, I mean, I don't know that she knows anything about stage directing, although from having written about this woman putting on a stage play, it seems that she does. But yeah, I was like, she gets it, what's at the core of Macbeth. Yeah, nailed it. 10 out of 10. I guess because the ending, because I mean, again, like, I don't know how you end this story. I guess if I had a complaint, I almost feel like the ending isn't dark enough. Like, I would have been absolutely here for just a completely brutal ending. And the ending is like, it's by no means like gumdrops and rainbows, but it's not nearly as brutal as it could have been. And I think maybe it would be better with a more brutal ending, but I don't know. Because, like, on the other hand, like, there's an argument to be made for ending it the way that it did end. Like, I don't hate the ending. I'm not like, oh, that's a terrible way to end it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that works. That works. So 9.5 out of 10, I guess, for that. But again, I don't have a recommendation for how to improve the ending specifically. But yeah, I mean, man, the day and night contrast between Lady Macbeth and All's Well. I mean, I know this is not the order in which this happened, but in the order in which I experienced this, it feels like Ava Reed was like fucking around over there and not knowing why she's doing this or what for and doing it terribly. And Mona Awad was like, hold my beer. Oh, so good. Such a palate cleanse. And I'm actually enjoying the book I currently picked up as part of this project. It is Not for the Wolf. At some point we'll have to finish that. But so yeah, things are doing better now with this whole project. But yeah, this right now easily could be my favorite for my priorities, and it definitely contender for a favorite overall of the year. So good. Next is another book that I've owned for a long time. Not as long as some of the others, but I was super excited when it came out, mainly because of the cover, and I feel like everyone's already read it except for me. So it never wins polls because everyone's already read it. But that is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I've been reading a lot of Stephen King in the last few years, and for the most part, I have not regretted that. He's not always a hit. I actually tend to prefer when he writes things that are not horror. There tends to be horror elements in most of what he writes, but I've much more preferred, and there's also speculative elements in most of what he writes, but not everything. But like this in 2024, I really enjoyed Dolores Claiborne. I really enjoyed Misery. I really enjoyed Carrie, which is more horror. And the year before I read, maybe it was last year? I forget, but like decently recently I read Mr. Mercedes. Is that the series or the book? I forget, but the first one. And I think my first Stephen King was Pet Sematary. But I really love The Eyes of the Dragon, and I really love Joyland. I tend to prefer that. I don't really like The Shining or Salem's Lot. Not because they're like too scary for me, I find them boring. Anyway, all that to say, Fairy Tale very much intrigues me because I don't know too much about it. I did hear kind of mixed reviews, but what this kind of like the cover and the vibe of it, it looks to me like it's going to have more in common with Eyes of the Dragon, which I love. And I'm not expecting this to be exactly like that, but that's kind of why I'm so intrigued by it. I mean, this cover is stunning. And yeah, that's the story of why this is on the list. Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This was the book that I mentioned in my previous clip that I was in the middle of reading. And the way that I went from caring so much, caring being turned up to 11, to not caring at all, to caring a negative amount, needs to be studied by science. Oh my god. Like, I had seen mixed reviews for this, and foolishly, I thought that the beginning part, which is like not fantastical really, was the part that everyone was like not liking. And I was like, wow, this is the part, like, I'm really loving this. And if I love this part, then I must love the whole thing. The fantastical part is the part that absolutely did not work for me at all. Maybe I shouldn't say at all, because I guess I have seen worse. But I just, wow. Wow. So, like, I have read quite a lot of Stephen King books now, mainly because my patrons have me like pick the Stephen King books a lot for me to read, for like to vlog for them. And what I've said repeatedly is that for a lot of the time when I love Stephen King, it's when he's showing off his abilities as a character writer. Because I think he's actually a phenomenal character writer. And it's the fantastical and the horror and all that stuff that it's not like it's scary or something like that. I usually don't find it scary. I find it really boring. I really don't enjoy very much speculative stuff by him. If I like something speculative by him, it's usually because the speculative element is sort of the backseat. It's sort of like a small like flavoring to it. So like Carrie. I loved Carrie. And Carrie certainly has a speculative element, but it's mainly a character-driven story about this young woman, and then there's like kind of this like speculative element that kind of like heightens everything. So I really like that. And I really liked my very first Stephen King, which is Pet Sematary, although I think I only gave it like 4 or 4.5 because of the speculative part. So like the speculative part, for the most part, really again did the thing Carrie does, where it kind of like heightens the character part of it. But the end went full speculative and completely lost me. So Fairy Tale was really phenomenal character writing in the beginning, more than the beginning. It's like, it's a good chunk of this book before we get to the speculative portal fantasy part of it, the fairy tale part of it. And all of that, I was like, completely here for this. 10 out of 10. Love this. More of this. It can only get better from here, right? Wrong. And then like almost like as soon as we do the speculative part, where we do the portal fantasy part, we're in the fairy tale now. Just negative caring. And okay, that's not actually true. The very beginning, this is a really thick book, so I guess I'll keep holding it up. But the very beginning of the speculative part of it, when we first go into like the portal fantasy part of this, I still cared actually a great deal, because we were still kind of resolving an existing problem from like the real world, and we were going into the fairy tale world to kind of like fix that issue. So it was like a carryover, like a residual from the part of the story that I really liked and was super invested in. So then we resolved that part of it, and now we're like full on into like fairy tale problems. Like now that we're here, new problems have arisen, and now that's what we're dealing with. And I just could not care less. I kept trying to care, kept hoping I would care, kept waiting for the moment that I would care. And honestly, all of the fairy tale part, it just kept feeling like it was like building up towards the part where we would get going, but then it was over. I was like, okay, so he's gonna do like this bit for a bit. But this is like leading to the greater narrative, or like this is like we're starting to get somewhere with this, but this is just like the beginning part of it. But no, that's the whole of it. It's actually like a really, really simple story. The like fairy tale part of it, like what ends up being like the situation in fairy tale land that needs to like be dealt with, is so, I mean, I guess aptly named fairy tale. Like it is that simple. Like I don't want to say like it's Stephen King, so it's like dark and violent, but like what the situation is and what needs to be accomplished and what needs to be done and what they end up doing is just so brutally straightforward. I was like, is that it? Like, for me to care about this story, like, you have to make me care about the characters, because there's like nothing to this story that's natively interesting to it, because there's just like nothing here. It's like the window dressing is kind of like horrifically fantastical, but like the actual like what's going on here is like there's like nothing to it. And so like the beginning part, which also like I guess has nothing to it, but it was like really, really good character work, you know, just like a real normal people with normal everyday problems, and he's actually really good at writing that. But somehow he can't do that with a fantastical character. Even the main character, who is like from our world, he suddenly becomes like a fairy tale character that I give no shits about when he's in fairy tale land. He loses the piece of him that like made me care about him in the first place, until he's back in the real world, and then I suddenly start caring about him again. Like, and all the characters that are like native to fairyland, it's not actually called fairyland, but like, you know, like there's just like one of them I kind of a little bit felt a little something for, barely. And there's like a bunch of characters. There's suddenly a ton of characters in Fairyland. The main story, like, or like the beginning, like when we're in the real world, there's what, like 4 characters that like we're following. That's it. And then in Fairyland, there's probably like 20 characters, and I don't remember any of their names. I vaguely remember like the archetypes they fulfilled. I just, oh my god, I cannot possibly overstate how little I care about the fairy tale part of this. Like, as far as I'm concerned, this book should have been like, he wonders about going to Fairyland, decides not to, end of book. It would have been 5 stars. Oh, going to Fairyland, snooze fest. And it, like, again, dark snooze fest, like nightmare snooze fest. But like, I didn't feel horrified. I didn't feel tense or scared. The only time I felt tense or scared was when we were still resolving the real world thing that we were gonna fix in Fairyland. And I was very on the edge of my seat for that still. And I was like, okay, so this bodes well, because I still like, again, this is still just like the normal mundane part of it. And I'm so invested, like, you know, can only get, no. As soon as that was resolved, I was like, okay, so like the thing that I was feeling the most anxious about is over now. Like, we fixed that. So like, what are we doing now? Other stuff? Yeah, I just don't care. All y'all could die, would not care less. So, wow. I am extremely disappointed. Which, like, when I started, like, the good, like a third of this, probably, before you get to Fairyland, is some of the best I've read. I was hooked, completely hooked. I just, yeah, it's like the highest highs and the lowest lows. I would give 5 stars to the first third of this book. The Fairyland part of this book, 1 star. 1 star is generous. So if this was like a duology and we split it that way, then that's how that would split. I would give the first book 5 stars, and then the second book, We're in the Fairyland, would be 0 stars. And I'm really also disappointed because, like, I haven't really liked Stephen King's speculative fiction, as I already said. But it's usually, like, horror type stuff. Like, I don't really like The Shining. Again, it's not, like, I don't think it's scary, I just think it's boring. I don't really like Salem's Lot. What else have I read? I don't know. But anyway, but I do really like Eyes of the Dragon. And so I was hopeful that, like, well, this is going to be speculative, but it's going to be Eyes of the Dragon speculative. This is going to be like the marriage of the two bests of Stephen King, like fantastic IRL stuff, which is just like character-driven storytelling, which he's really good at. And then we're going to get like Eyes of the Dragon fairy tale vibes, which is also phenomenal. And we're going to get the two at once. This is going to be like my favorite book ever. And that is very much not the case. If you're hoping that this is going to be anything like Eyes of the Dragon, it is not. It is not. So yeah, I guess I'll give this like 3 stars, which is like an averaging of the 2 feelings I have. But I feel like if you saw like a 3-star rating on this, that wouldn't like accurately convey the like amazing and horrible of what this is. It's not just like meh throughout. It's like so good and then so not good. 10 out of 10 cover though. Love this cover. Fantastic cover. And yeah, that's the next one done. Would I recommend it? I don't know. I genuinely feel like if you read this book, you should just read it up until the part he's gonna go to Fairyland, or even through the part where he's fixing the real world thing still in Fairyland, because that's still good. And then just be like, okay, and now the story's over. The end. Just stop reading. Because that's like genuinely worthwhile. It's so good up until that point. That just pretend the rest doesn't exist. It's my sincere advice. But yeah, on to next one. And last is a book that my patrons desperately want to prevent me reading, but I've owned it for a long time, and I'm not going to get rid of it before at least finding out if I like this or not. That is Anxious People by Friedrich Bachmann. Never read Friedrich Bachmann. A couple people have said that I would like Friedrich Bachmann, but a lot more people have been like, don't read him, don't ruin this for us, Leanna, don't do it. But again, I've had this for a long time. I'm gonna at least try it. And maybe I'll hate it, in which case then we know. But I think I could like it. You never know. Well, we're gonna find out in 2025. Anxious People, that's my patrons. Anxious People by Friedrich Bachmann. A book that I heard a lot about. I've had this since 2020 when I got it from Book of the Month. And it's not, I mean, it's like lit fic, and this cover isn't very enticing. And then also a ton of people, most of whom were my patrons, but just a lot of people were like, oh no, Lena's gonna hate Friedrich Bachmann. Lena's gonna hate Anxious People. No one let her read that. But I already owned it, and it's part of this project, and everyone was like, oh god, she's gonna hate it. Joke's on you, I fucking love this. This is like favorite of the year material. This is so good. And I suspect that the reason people thought that I may not like it is because of how like sweet it can be, and kind of like a little bit silly in a way that is kind of could keep company with like cozy type books. But I think coziness is usually irritating to me because 1, it's boring, 2, there's nothing like underpinning it, there's nothing deeper there, and 3, I usually find it to be really like surface level and really shallow and empty and just like a boring waste of my time. And that could not be further from the description of this. This is so perfectly sincere. So, like, it's sweet, but in a way that's just like life. Like extremely sincere sweetness, extremely sincere heartbreak, extremely sincere irritation, frustration. This just feels like such, this is going to be kind of weird to say because this is just kind of lit fic. That's kind of like about a somewhat kind of like quirky set of circumstances that is a little bit, I suppose, beggars belief, but is an excuse to kind of unpack various traumas in a way that's kind of sweet and endearing. and a little bit of a mystery sort of to it. What was I gonna say? Where was I going with that? Anyway, I truly do not know where I was going with that. But anyway, this just like hits the, there we go. And I've thought of it. Yeah, so this is just, yeah, what I just described. But so weirdly, like this book is kind of why, or like this, the reason I love this is the same reason that I love studying anthropology. And not just studying anthropology, because, I mean, I did like studying it, but doing like field work, like doing my own ethnographies. I really loved it and strongly considered going to graduate school to be an anthropologist. Because you have to talk to people. Then you have to just kind of find out what they have to say. And not in a really directed kind of like interview kind of way where like there's a targeted like piece of information you need or a targeted narrative you're trying to find. Like being a good anthropologist, writing a good ethnography is just being a sponge. Is just being a sponge for like a place and a time and a people and just trying to kind of like absorb it all and kind of be able to then like to soak it all up and then to be able to wring it out into like a cohesive bit of writing that can kind of convey all of what you soaked up. And so like when I would talk to people, when I was doing my own ethnographies, like, yeah, like I could never be an archaeologist, could not be me. I didn't expect to be talking about this book, but this is probably why this works for me so well, is because this, when we were sort of like slowly unraveling who these people are and looking beneath the surface of what your assumptions about them would be and what makes them tick and why they're here and what has motivated them and what they think and what they feel and why they're saying the things that they're saying and how they feel about the world and whatever. And as we kind of like peel back those layers in a kind of very gentle way, it reminded me of doing field work, of talking to people and just kind of letting them just talk, letting them just say stuff. And because I would never be bored by that. Potsherds, fossils, couldn't be me. Do not care. But listening to people just tell their stories, and they don't have to be riveting stories. They don't have to be, you know, this crazy thing that happened to me because I'm an adventurer or whatever. It would just be just lives lived, because they often had surprising things to say. Things that you wouldn't necessarily have assumed or necessarily have known. I can listen to people talk all day, which is weird because, like, I feel like I'm pretty antisocial. But it's because, like, I don't like small talk, and I find, like, socializing exhausting. But just absorbing what people have to say, endlessly interesting to me. And I guess, yeah, I don't like the performance of social interaction. I don't want that. I want to be able to just sit there and just be a sponge and just have you tell me your life story. And without any expectation of me, like, having to, like, performatively respond and the back and forth of it and the, like, social politics of it. Like, when we can just not do that. When you can just tell me. Just tell me about you. And not in a way that's like, what are we getting out of this? Is this an interview? Are we networking? Like, any of that. I find that so exhausting. I hate it. And I feel like with being an anthropologist, like with doing field work, you get to talk to people in a way that is more raw, because they know that that's why you're there. Like, that you're not there because you're networking or because, like, you're a friend of a friend and now there's, like, all these layers of the awkwardness of the social situation. You're like you're not a person when you're the anthropologist. Like, you are, but you're not. And so they know that you don't have any other agenda there besides listening. And so then they just talk. Because this isn't about anything else. And that's what I love about it. Anyway, so that's for the same reason I loved this. Because it was just, I mean, if you're not interested in people stories and just kind of like what makes people people and where they came from and what made them who they are today and the world that shaped them and how they view their place in that world and how they would like to see the world be or how they would like to shape the world if they could, or maybe they have no idea. Like, if that's not going to be of interest to you, then yeah, I would say you should never read this book. But as the tone, if that's why people thought I would hate it, no. Like, I could see someone doing this badly and me hating it if they tried to make it too cheeky, too twee, too, like, wallowing in being sort of depressing and trying to, like, overemphasize that point. But it doesn't. It just kind of lets things just kind of be. they just kind of are silly, and they just kind of are sad. And life just kind of is inherently silly and sad and really beautiful and really ugly and everything in between. It just kind of is all those things. And this book just kind of lets it be those things in a way that's so sincere. And I teared up multiple times. So I loved this, and I shall be seeking out more Friedrich Bachmann. This was for sure, this might be my favorite of the books that I'm reading for this project. We'll see. But 5 stars for sure. Next up is a book that has been on my shelves for a very long time, and I'm pretty sure at this point that I won't like this because I've heard enough things, and I've had enough people read this book like that talk to me or like start it while they're like in my Patreon or whatever and talk about like the experience of reading it, and I'm pretty sure at this point it's not gonna be for me, but I own it. I've owned it for a long time, and like let's just find out. And that is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. I love this cover. That's half the reason I own it. And then I remember it sounded like a pretty intriguing premise for the world building and the magic system, but then everything I've heard since then, both from people that enjoy it and that don't enjoy it, the consensus is like, Lena won't like this. And it's Robert Jackson Bennett, right, that wrote that book that came out in 2024 that was like a fantasy Sherlock Holmes-esque type thing that had that beautiful cover, The Tainted Cup. That was Robert Jackson Bennett, right? Yeah, and the hexology, because I kept getting confused. This is not totally related to this, but I kept getting confused between The Tainted Cup and The Hexologist because those covers look similar to me. But yeah, The Tainted Cup was by Robert Jackson Bennett, pretty sure. Anyway, like I said, I own this. I've owned it for a very long time. I suspect that I will not like this, but I'm not going to get rid of it without even trying it. So I'm going to try it. Might DNF it. We'll see. Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. I don't think this is an author that's for me, to be perfectly honest. I read, was it last year, I think? Whenever the year it came out. I think it was the year it came out. The one with the really pretty cover. Actually, this cover's pretty cool too. Tainted Cup? Is that Robert Jackson Bennett? The one that was like Sherlock Holmesian. Anyway, everyone was really impressed with that and really loved it. I wanted to like it, and I did not. So this book, there's just like so much about it that was just like never gonna work for me. Even a better version of this wouldn't work for me, and I don't think this is that good a version of this because I don't think he's that good a writer in terms of like the writing part, which sounds like a very stupid thing to say. But I don't think like on a prose level, on a dialogue level, on just that, like the conveying of the story, like content of story aside, just like how it's being delivered, I don't think he's that great at that. And then, yeah, I just don't like the story or the world building or the pacing of said story, the delivery of the world building. I don't think that's done well. And the world building. It's probably the biggest problem I have with it, but the other stuff I don't think is great either. Like, and I've said this before where it's rare, but there are times when world building is so good that I forgive bad writing or bad pacing, or that like the writing and the pacing character work is so good that I forgive bad world building or a bad plot, things like that. They can be good enough to like, so Will of the Many is like my go-to now example. Where I just think the concept is so good that I'm kind of overlooking and forgiving a heck of a lot with that one, and I'm still rating it quite highly, and I think it made my favorites of the year last year. So this, yeah, okay. So I kind of knew this going in at this. I didn't know it when I bought it and was first hyped when I was first interested, but between then and like when I was reading it, people had mentioned it a lot, like what the magic system is, both in terms of why they're excited for it or also why they thought I wouldn't like it, and they were right. So the magic system is like coding reality. I think that's how people have described it, and I think that's a fair description. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't really think of another way of describing it. But so there's like a worldview that this is all predicated upon that is not my worldview. And I've read a lot of books that are written by authors that have different worldviews from me. And it sort of depends on how much that's playing a role in their story for how much it's going to bother me. Like, is it so like undivorceable, so fundamental, so recurringly present in what is being told to you that it's inescapable, or is it just kind of like also there? I've mentioned this when I've talked about the Sun Eater books. I call it cilantro because I'm like, I love Mexican food, but I'm one of those people that cilantro tastes like soap to me. And so I would just kind of put up with a little bit of soapiness sometimes in my Mexican food because I really love Mexican food, and boy do they like putting cilantro in things. So I'll usually like pick it off or ask for none, but it's kind of in everything. So I just kind of like, I like the food so much that I tolerate a little bit of soapiness. So that's kind of how I am with Sun Eater, where I'm like, the thing that I don't like about this, that is not my worldview, that is for sure present in it, it is like cilantro. I kind of put up with it because the rest of it I do find quite compelling. So here, the worldview, and I don't even know, like I would actually want to ask the author if this is their worldview or if they just like didn't think about it. Because I do find this to be the case in quite a lot of fantasy, and I know I'm more nitpicky about like the sort of implications of fantasy world building than other people. Lord knows The Soul Is Not a Cigarette Box is now what I'm famous for, thanks to Bookborn. You don't know what I'm talking about, the lore there. And I will talk more specifically about this in a sec, but like Bookborn gave me Paper Menagerie to read, and overall I love the collection, the Paper Menagerie collection, and I love the story Paper Menagerie for sure. But in that collection, which I think is like a 5-star collection overall, in that collection, one of my least favorite stories was a story about souls being like inanimate objects, like man-made objects. And that's one of Bookborn's favorite stories in the collection, and I hated that story. I hated that story. And actually, since we're talking about it, I don't know if I've ever shown these on my channel, and she said she was going to do this, and then she really did it. She made her custom ordered coasters for me that say, a soul is not a man-made object. So, and then, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a cigarette box, and I think this is like meant to be like a soul, and it's like a, you know, line going through, like, because in that story, there's the various people with various types of inanimate object souls, and one of the most prominent ones in the story is a cigarette box. Like, someone's soul is a cigarette box. And now it's just like shorthand. Like, I've messaged Bookborn since then, or like, I'm reading something that I don't like. I might have even messaged her about this book specifically and said that, where I'm like, I'm not liking the book I'm currently reading, and she was like, oh, why? And I'm like, I'm very Soul Is Not a Cigarette Box about it. She knows exactly what I mean immediately. So, okay, so in this world, basically all things have souls. I don't know if it's not expressed that way, but it is expressed in terms of, like, mind versus body as being two distinct things, which, you know, like, in, like, philosophy and metaphysics and religion and whatever, like, that's not undisputed as an idea. In fact, it's extremely disputed. And a lot of, I guess my issue, I think I do better with this as a concept if it's a very soft magic system. And we're not going into the hows and the whys and whatever. And then I'm like, it's more of like just a discussion about something spiritual and it's all a metaphor. And I'm like, okay, I can kind of go along with this. But here, it's very like technical because it's presented more like coding, where there's like very like technical discussion about manipulating reality. And the way that reality is manipulated is kind of like by convincing the like mind of the object of certain truths, or lying to the object. And it is a little actually reminiscent of Sympathy in Name of the Wind, which I really like. But in Name of the Wind, the like mind that must be convinced of something that is not actually possible being possible in order to make the magic happen is the magic user himself or herself. Like, it is like the practicer of sympathy who needs to like create a cognitive dissonance in their mind that's so good, so ironclad that they can create magic. They make themselves believe that this is possible, and through that make it possible. But here it's the object that needs to believe this. And it just like falls apart for me so quickly because, first of all, what is an object? That's not undisputed in philosophy, you know, like when you break things down to their component parts, when does it become the object? When does it split into two different objects? How are we defining these entities and whatever? And then the idea that they have minds. And there's a line in the book that I already didn't like this, and I already knew basically how I was going to talk about this, but I was just like, it was a nail in the coffin. It was a line about, like, someone is talking about the magic system being used in a way that they're like, well, no, but that's not possible. We didn't think that was a thing this magic system could do. And they were like, this magic, it can affect, like, the mechanics of something. And that, and then they're like, but it cannot create a mind. And the way they express it is like, that this magic system can only affect physical reality. It cannot create or affect minds. And like, this is where I'm like, okay, but a mind is a physical reality. Like, I do not hold the belief that a mind is something other than a physical reality. So when it's saying that, I already, like, if I liked this book and I liked this magic system, if it did that, it would be the cilantro. It would be something where I'm like having to like swallow it and kind of go with it, even though I don't agree and I don't like it. But I already don't like any of this anyway. So this book spends a ton of time on mechanics of magic system, and this is all how it works, and how it works constantly. It's constantly explained to you and info dumped to you, and the characters talk in unnatural ways just in order to continue to convey this information to you. In general, people don't talk in ways that humans talk. Like, all of it is like tons of expository dialogue, really on the nose things to like say the emotions or whatever. Really on the nose kind of like conclusions that people come to, or the way that like the magic system and the plot unfolds in a way that is just too, again, on the nose for a sort of emotional beat or emotional revelation that we've been building towards. It's too neat and it's not elegant. But the thing it also reminded me of was Arcane. And again, this might be sounding great to you, in which case I wish you all the best and happiness. A lot of people like this book. I don't really like Arcane. I thought Arcane was okay. I like Arcane better than this, but I don't really like Arcane. But the setup of this city and kind of the power struggle in this, and also a little bit the magic system and the sort of like magic tech that is going on, did feel, at least aesthetically and like in vibes, extremely similar to Arcane. So if you love Arcane, then you'd probably like this book a lot. Again, I don't really like Arcane, so that's not like a huge plus to me. I think Arcane, though, actually has some quite compelling character arcs. And obviously the art style is very impressive, so it has some things going for it, for me, which this is entirely without. It does not have compelling character arcs. This is just like an onslaught of the author thinking they're oh so clever with the intricacies of this like ridiculous magic system that I'm just not on board for a single page of it. I just can't be on board for this. And I get that that's probably like a me problem, and you're typing some comment about how I'm not cut out to read fantasy. That's fine. I just can't with stuff like this. I just cannot. So I don't even really think it's a bad book. It's just, I think it's like a mediocre book that then chose to do a ton of things that I specifically really do not like. Like, I don't think it's like a really excellent book that I'm just not the right reader for. I think it's like an okay book, and then it's gonna be like okay for you if you're like on board for the type of plot and magic system that it's interested in doing. But for me, it's mediocre, and I'm not on board for this type of magic and for like this info dumping language and whatever. And it's blurbed by a bunch of people that I don't especially like. I shouldn't say that, but I don't like Brian McClellan and Sebastian Castell, so the fact that they liked it I'm really happy for them. Have I read Peter V. Brett? I feel like I have not. I feel like people have told me not to. Anyway, I mean, by the time I added it to the list, people had already kind of, like, I've owned this for quite a long time, and people had already kind of been like, oh, yeah, no, you're not gonna like it. And I'm like, you're probably right, but I've owned it forever, and, you know, I surprise myself all the time, so maybe I'll like it. I did not. It was a slog to get through. But I did it. It's done. I know now that Robert Jackson Bennett is not the author for me. And I'm really happy for all y'all who do love Robert Jackson Bennett. Live your best life. Next up is a book that I was very excited when it was announced, and I pre-ordered like every edition of it, and I'm still excited about it, but I planned to reread the book that kind of inspired this world. I think it inspired this. I could be absolutely wrong about this. Okay, let me just tell you what it is. The 13th Child by Aaron A. Craig. So Erin A. Craig wrote House of Salt and Sorrows, which I loved when it came out. And then she wrote a sequel to that, which came out, and I still haven't read it because I was going to reread House of Salt and Sorrows, and I didn't finish that reread, so I have not then read the sequel. And then I'm not totally sure if this is related to that or not, and that's why I haven't read it, because I'm like, well, I still haven't tackled the reread and the reading of that sequel, and then is this different or is this new? Can I read this? So I'm going to figure it out. And whatever I need to have read before this, I will do so. And if it's nothing, then I can dive in, great. But I was so excited for this to come out, and now I just haven't read it. I think this would be a really good Halloween read, but just whenever I'm feeling it. So I'm gonna figure out the situation with this and read it, because her writing was very atmospheric. I really, really liked House of Salt and Sorrows. Ending like a little bit not perfect, and same with Small Favors. I also really loved Small Favors by Erin A. Craig, which is not related to any other books. It's a standalone. I think she has very good like atmospheric transportive writing. The plots have like issues with them here and there, but overall I enjoy her writing. So yeah, very excited about this. And is this edition the one with the pretty? Yeah, it has a pretty naked book. Anyway, The 13th Child by Erin A. Craig. I thought it was okay. I think it started decently strong. It just kind of steadily went downhill, and then also I really did not like the ending. The ending left me really scratching my head. Now, to be fully transparent, it's been several weeks since I finished this. I just have not found the time to film this clip. So it's not as fresh in my brain as I would like, but yeah, firstly, it did not have like the atmosphere, I don't even know. Like, Erin A. Craig books, I guess I've only read 2 before this, but both of them, they were quite different, and they were by no means, like, perfect. They both had flaws, but what they both really, really nailed were, like, atmosphere and just a mood, a vibe that was so, like, immersive and engrossing and haunting. And then both of them kind of fumbled the landing, but, you know, the journey is, like, amazing vibes. Here, we never even at the opening had those vibes, and then it just kind of like continued to not be that great, and then the ending was once again fumbled, but it didn't like, it wasn't like the journey had been so great. So basically this is a story about a young girl who is she's the 13th child, and she is promised to death, basically. And why death would need that or want that or care about it, I mean, the book technically gives an explanation for this, but not a particularly compelling one. And the main character, she's just not that interesting or compelling, and the romance in it is not that interesting or compelling. It's so immediately obvious what the romance is going to be, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is annoying when you know this is what it's going to be, and then it acts like, oh, and I surprised you with this romance. Like, no, you didn't. No, you fucking didn't. It was so clear how this was gonna go. And, like, I don't know. Like, when the male, like, you know, romantic love interest or whatever, in a book, like, you're supposed to, like, when they're saying things about, you know, our main character, our main female character, like, you're supposed to agree, right? You're supposed to be like, yeah, she is so amazing. It's so great that he's seeing it, and, like, kind of, like, be there for it, as opposed to being like, is she though? Like, when he's just saying, like, oh, I see you and you are so special and you're the strongest person I know, and I'm just like, is she though? Because she makes very stupid decisions. Some of them can be justified by her being naive and young, but I don't know, there's an art to doing that where when you watch a character do that stuff, where you don't feel annoyed by it, where if you might feel frustrated in the sense of like, oh, I wish I could read through the pages and save them from making a dumb choice, like when you read a Robin Hobb book. But in Robin Hobb, I'm never like, ugh, they're just so dumb. I'm like, oh, like, it's just too believable that they would naively make this choice, and it's painful to watch. But here, I'm just rolling my eyes a lot. So I wasn't like very invested in the main character, and then like how the plot unfolds, and yeah, a lot of the conclusions that she jumps to, they're just such stupid conclusions, like, and the frustrations that she has, I just had no sympathy for, because like the information you are given there is the same that, you know, the information she's working off of, And like when she's questioning things in the way that she is, I, the reader who has the same information that she does, I'm like, why? Why would you question this? Like, based on the information you have, like, what are you doing? This is so stupid. And so when other characters get mad at her for having done the things that she's done, and then they'll sort of come around when she like gives her side and be like, I understand why you did what you did, even if it was wrong. And I'm like, I don't understand why you did what you did. It was very stupid. So then later when characters are like, oh, you're so smart and brave, I'm like, no, she's not. She's really dumb. Like, makes really like dumb decisions or really emotional decisions. And she's just kind of boring. And then the ending, she the author, not the character. I won't spoil the ending, but the ending, I literally don't understand the ending. Like, it skips ahead and gives you this neat little bow, but between where the last thing you saw and now where you've jumped to, there is just like, I don't have enough information to fill in that gap. I simply do not. And the way that it just is like, see, and you're like, you can like fill in what happened in between. And I'm like, I really can't. I cannot. Like, I have so many questions about how we got from the last point we saw to now what is like the epilogue. Like, what? I'm not saying you can't have got there, but you couldn't skip that. You can't skip to that. Nope, I need an explanation. So the ending, I was kind of glad for it to be coming to an end, but then when it ended like that, I was like, wait, what? I was like, you're not gonna explain how we got to there? It's just over now? I'm like, but how? So like, strangely, even though like this is the most like vibey cover of all of her books, and the premise, right, the 13th child promised to death, sounds like it would be the vibiest, it's the least vibey that I've read. House of Salt and Sorrows, vibes amazing. Small Favors, vibes amazing. Like, so haunting. It's really just like later revelation about what's been going on that kind of fumbles a bit, and the romances tend to fumble for me. But just the setup and the atmosphere of those stories, like, so good. Here, where is the atmosphere? And the world building here, I'm pretty okay with world building that's kind of like, we don't need to fill it all in for the purposes of this story. I'm giving you the pieces you need and you can kind of assume the rest. Depending on the type of story you're telling, that can be absolutely the right decision. But here, the world building feels so shallow. It doesn't feel like, oh, I've told you the bits you need to know and hinted at the rest so you can kind of like fill it in. Nope, I can't fill it in. I really can't. Just like I can't fill in the gap between where you ended it and then the epilogue. There's a lot here that I'm like, I feel like you're leaving it up to me to fill in, but I don't have enough here to go off of to be able to do that. So, yeah, what a letdown. What a letdown. What a stunning cover. Just look at this pretty, pretty book. It's so, like, dramatic. And the book itself is just so kind of, like, lackluster, to be honest. It does not warrant this. So, it's really disappointing. Especially because, like, I know she can deliver vibes like that. And really, that's all I was asking for. I was not expecting, like, this to, like, blow me away and knock my socks off in terms of being a groundbreaking plot and the most compelling love story of all time. I'm quite happy for Erin A. Craig to simply deliver immaculate vibes. And I didn't even get that out of this, so I am concerned. I still have one or two other books from her that I have not read. And so, because the other two had been so, like, deliberate on the vibes, even if they fumbled the landing, I was like, this is solid. Like, this is reliable. It's no longer reliable. So, like, it's not a terrible book. If you did find the main character compelling, which I don't, but if you did, and if you found the romance compelling, I think this probably would be a decently, like, entertaining read. And the sort of, like, something, like, you could call it a mystery to the plot, would be, like, enough to kind of keep you invested and interested and wanting to know the answers. For me, I was, like, mildly interested at best. So, yeah, it's, like, a very low 3 stars. Because there's nothing, aside from, like, the sort of, like, the gap at the end where I'm like, what? There isn't anything that's, like, wrong with it. It's just very, like, it's, like, barely adequate in every category on my rubric or whatever. So, and I just know she can do better. So it's really disappointing. Sinister and beautiful, this dark fairy tale swept me away. Like, I wish. Like, that's what I wanted to be saying about this. Darkly wondrous. It's not sumptuous, gothic, ornate. No, it's not. I thought those are all the things that I wanted, but it wasn't those things. So yeah, sad. Next up, I have Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is an author that I am never excited about actually physically picking up her books, and then every time I finally do it, I'm like, why didn't I read this sooner? This changed my life. This was amazing. It's because like she writes lit fic about kind of like contemporary lit fic is I suppose what I should say. And the one that was of most interest to me was like the most historical, which was Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Evelyn Hugo, and devoured that. That was my first book by her. And then I took my time and I finally read Daisy Jones, loved it. I took my time, finally read Malibu Rising, loved it. And Carrie Soto is back. I mean, I do like the UK cover better, which is what I have here. The US cover truly does nothing for me, but it's like, okay, it's about a tennis player. Like, why would I care about that? But I'm like, it's because it's Taylor Jenkins Reid. I know I will probably love this. I just have to make myself read it. I know once I do, I'll be like, oh my god, that was so good. Why didn't I read it sooner? So I'm putting it on this list to make myself read it. I'm sure it'll be great. Maybe it won't be as good as some of her other books, but I'm sure I will enjoy it. Carrie Soto is Back is not my favorite. This is my first miss from Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I say miss because it's like on the scale of Taylor Jenkins Reid. So like it's not a bad book. It's just compared to other Taylor Jenkins Reid books, this is just like not it. And I want to say like I'm not surprised, but then I am surprised because like basically every premise of a Taylor Jenkins Reid book sounds like something that I would never pick up. And the only reason I started reading her books was because everyone and their mother was like, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is life-changing. And I was like, I looked at the premise, I was like, I would never myself pick this up just like spontaneously. But all genres, like fantasy readers, lit fic readers, classic readers, sci-fi readers, everyone was like, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And it was life-changing. It was amazing. So I was like, okay. And then I probably would have considered more for books anyway, but Daisy Jones got similar hype. So I was like, I mean, Seven Husbands was great. And then, yeah, Daisy Jones was also great. Although they have been getting, like, progressively less great. Although they've been all, like, hits with me. But, like, Seven Husbands was the first and the best. Daisy Jones was, like, still really, really good. Not quite as good as Seven Husbands. And then Malibu Rising was absolutely, like, I was like, I would literally never pick this up, except it has Taylor Jenkins Reid's name on it, so I trust her. And I read it, and I was like, it's probably my least favorite of the three, but still, like, a 4 or 5 star book. So she continues to, like, write books that on the dust jacket would never interest me, but, like, her writing is that good. So Carrie Soto is back, about a tennis player coming back out of retirement. I was like, just like those other, maybe more so than the other three, this is a premise I would truly never pick up, if not for Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I was like, all right, who knows, maybe this will be my favorite of them all. It is not. It's not a bad book, and I do feel like if I was really into tennis or knew anything about tennis, I might enjoy it more because this book is a lot about tennis, and I don't give a shit about tennis. I was actually talking to somebody at work, and they were just telling me about, like, their kid playing tennis and training their kid to play tennis and just what it's like to train to play tennis, and one of the other people at work and what he's doing to train his kid to play tennis. And I was like, you know what, you should read Carrie Soto is Back. I think you'd like it way more than me, because I was just listening to it. I was like, yeah, like what you're describing sounds exactly like, I feel like if I was into it or had ever done tennis or trained for tennis or anything like that, or knew someone really well that did, I as speaking as a complete amateur, novice, ignorant, it seems to me, based on just having read it and based on just my coworker talking about it, I feel like I was like, yeah, I feel like I probably would feel like my experience was reflected here somewhat. Obviously not, unless you're like a world champion. That experience is not going to be, you know, something you have. But like the way she's training and how dedicated she is and what the training is like, I just don't give a fuck about it. Like, I think this is probably like, if anyone is going to make me care about it, it was Taylor Jenkins Reid, and she came... Well, but that's not true. I was going to say she came the closest because her writing is good, but I also just really, really don't like Carrie Soto. And Carrie Soto is meant to be an unlikable character, so it feels unfair to say that, but she's unlikable in a really boring way is the biggest problem. Because, like, I don't mind reading about an unlikable protagonist, like a anti-hero or a villain, or, I mean, birth log early here. But Carrie Soto's greatest crime is just being boring, because there's just, like, nothing to her except her obsession with tennis. But it's not, like, interesting watching someone be that obsessed, at least not in this book. Because, again, like, I don't know, like, when you watch, like, Oppenheimer or something, and you can see the, like, the sort of, like, mad obsession with the thing they're doing, and it makes you interested in it, or it makes you interested in watching them be interested in it. And here, again, she's written to be an unlikable character. It's like, it's everyone in the book says that she's really unlikable. Like, that's like part of her reputation on the world stage as being one of the most like unlikable tennis champions. So it's like, you're supposed to find her not likable, but I think you are supposed to like root for her. And she's just so boring. And like everyone that hates her, I'm just like totally on their side. And the way she blames everyone else for her problems, I find her really irritating. She reminds me a little bit of how I imagine Taylor Swift is behind the scenes. Sorry, don't come for me. So like, it's fine. I don't like the protagonist, and I don't like tennis. And that's all this book is all about this protagonist playing tennis. So like here and there's some interesting commentary about like how women are treated in sports versus men. And I don't mean so much the sport itself. I mean like how it's like the sports version of office politics, where like men are considered, you know, like leaders, and if a woman exhibits the exact same traits, she's like bossy and bitchy. So like similarly with like tennis, where like Carrie is like irritated that she's supposed to be humble in all of her victories when she's like, I fucking earned this. Why should I be humble? Men aren't expected to be humble in their victories. And I mean, like, I do think it's a double standard, but I also just personally, usually with that stuff, I'm like, I don't think that women should start acting like men. I think men should start acting like women. Like, I think it's good to be humble. I think it's good to listen rather than talk over people. I don't think the solution is to have women now being assholes because men are. I think men should act more like women, like stereotypically, obviously. Not all women, not all men, whatever. Those are the stereotypes, though. So I'm just like, I agree it's unfair that it's a double standard, but I'm also like, I would also dislike a male champion who acted like that. I know that like maybe society at large wouldn't, but I would also dislike them. So I don't personally root for a woman to have the freedom to be an asshole. Does that make sense? I guess I want her to have the right to be an asshole, but I don't really want to see her exercise that right. Because I don't think people should be assholes if you want me to root for them. A thrilling, joyful smash hit of a book. I don't know about all that. I do really want to read Atmosphere still, though, because one, Taylor Jenkins Reid, like, she was 3 for 3 there. This is the first one that's a miss for several very specific reasons. And I do find myself more, like, I think I might actually pick up Atmosphere, even if it wasn't Taylor Jenkins Reid, because, like, that is way more interesting to me as a subject matter than this. So, I'm sad, but, you know, it is what it is. Sorry. The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. I have a few Jessie Burton books, and I've never read any of them. And I feel like it's an author that there's a very good chance I could like. It's historical fiction, not fantasy. I'm pretty sure I saw the miniseries, the adaptation of this that was done for like BBC or Masterpiece Theater or whatever. And yeah, I think if I'm remembering correctly, or if I'm thinking of the correct thing, because there certainly is an adaptation or like a Masterpiece Theater type thing that has Anya Taylor-Joy in it. It's like set in, well, where is this set? Amsterdam. And I think it was The Miniaturist. It's been a long time since I saw that. That's before she was like big famous. Anyway, so I remember enjoying that adaptation, but it's been a while, so like I don't remember all the specifics of it. And I'm often interested to read, especially like historical fiction and classics, even though I've seen a film of it. That doesn't deter me from wanting to read it. Anyway, I think this author, this is kind of not last year, not in 2024, but in 2023, I had a Hilary Mantel book, Wolf Hall. So this is kind of the Wolf Hall of 2025. Hopefully I like it better than Wolf Hall, because if you didn't see that vlog, spoilers for that vlog, I despised Wolf Hall. So hopefully I like this. At the very least, it's a lot shorter than Wolf Hall was. But yeah, I hope I like this also because just like with Hilary Mantel, I own, like I said, I own The Miniaturist. I think it's called The Muse. And then there's another book that, if it's not the sequel to The Miniaturist, it certainly like looks similar to it. Anyway, so I own a few of her books. Hopefully I like this one and will want to read the others that I have. The Miniaturist. I tried so hard to like this, but I do not like this. It's not the worst thing I've ever read, but oh my gosh. This can be added to my little grouping of historical fiction that I do not understand the hype about. So this can keep company with Essex Serpent, with Wolf Hall, with, wasn't there another one? And it was like one of these projects. I don't know, but that's 3 then. And I dislike it for very similar reasons that I disliked Essex Serpent and Wolf Hall. although both Essex Serpent and Wolf Hall were worse, way worse. This is like just barely readable. But at the end of the day, I'm like, what, why? Why does this exist? So The Miniaturist, this is one of the first books I started this year, and I kept stopping it, and I renewed my audiobook from the library probably like 15 times. Because I kept being like, oh, I think maybe I'm just like not in the right mood for this. Maybe I should just read it with my eyeballs. But I want to have the audio on deck in case I need it. I was like, maybe it's just like, it's not the right time of year for this. Or maybe this is one of those I really shouldn't listen to in the car. Like, I really need to focus on it and become immersed in it. All these like excuses I was making for it. And now we're down to the wire, to the end of the year. And I was like, okay, you just got to finish it. You just got to finish it. And I don't like it. I don't like it. This book, like the bullet points of what it is are not that bad. It's just that in order to write a book like this and make it worthwhile and make it compelling, you have to be doing really good character work, and this book is absolutely uninterested in doing that. And so since it's not doing that, there's just no point to this. Because the characters are the only thing that could possibly be of interest here. There's in terms of like a plot, I guess there's a plot, but not really. It's more just about like the experience of these characters. And I saw some reviews. Because, of course, after finishing it, I was like, nope, don't get it. Gotta go look at those reviews. What am I missing here? But I saw some negative reviews that were saying, if you're going to call a book The Miniaturist, it has to be about the miniaturist. What the heck? The miniaturist is like barely even in this book. And I disagree. I mean, I agree that that's the case. The miniaturist is barely in this book. I disagree. Like, I think I know what the book was going for in terms of naming it that. And if it had been done well, I would have had no issue with it. Because it's about sort of the miniaturist's effect on the people that are the actual protagonists of the story. Because the miniaturist kind of looms over a lot of what's going on. So it's not like the character themselves is in it a lot. It's like the miniaturist's effect, vibe, aura. Like, she's living rent-free in folks' minds. And it is also the only thing about this book that's remotely interesting. And then ends up being really like womp womp. So I think people were disappointed for those two reasons. One, they were like, where's the miniaturist I was promised? And then what little there is of the miniaturist, because it's sort of pitched to you as it's going to be a mystery. And even in the text of the book, as you're reading it, it's sort of giving literary mystery. But then we get to the like resolution, if it can be called that. And it isn't a resolution because there really isn't much there. So it wouldn't be that disappointing if it wasn't kind of like set up so much for you to expect something out of it, or if it was really, really good character work where the character who is the one expecting something, therefore you're expecting something. If we were really kind of like examining her emotional journey of having expected it and being disappointed, because then that would be compelling. But the main character, she mostly just seems like the camera that's observing things and reporting back. Occasionally the book remembers that we should describe the effect this is having on her emotionally, but that's what it feels like. It feels like the book is like, oh yeah, I should probably like explain how this is affecting her emotionally. There you go, I did it. It doesn't feel like you're feeling it with her. It doesn't feel like a natural reaction. Her reactions to a lot of things in the book are like, I feel like that would be barely scratching the surface of what you'd be going through right now. Because the thing is, there's some pretty harrowing things that happen in this book, or at least they would be extremely harrowing for the people they're happening to. But everything is in this like sort of detached, kind of just reporting the facts to you kind of narrative, which really doesn't work when the whole thing here needs to be like just like the miniaturist. Like the miniaturist is like, not the character, I mean like the idea of a miniaturist is that like you're looking at something that's like really ordinary, but there's like so much attention to teeny tiny detail to get every little bit of it right that like it becomes like beautiful and becomes artful and it becomes interesting, even though it's like a chair, but it's like a chair that was like artfully crafted in every single detail. So now it's fascinating. So I like literary fiction to be doing that with characters, with their psyches and their emotions, where like all of it's like probably quite mundane, but we're doing such detailed work with it. We're like zooming in on it so closely with like detailed, with such a clear illustration of every single facet of it that it becomes interesting. So like that's what we needed to, like, the way the characters are being described and their emotional journeys and their emotional states needed to have a miniaturist's eye for like craft and detail, but it's just not there. And then to have this miniaturist around as like ostensibly kind of like a symbolic, metaphorical, paralleling force to sort of, I think the point of it is to just kind of like, well, honestly, I don't know what the point of it is. I feel like it's there because this story truly would have no point to it otherwise, but it's there to sort of like make it seem like there's something kind of like tying this together and giving it like the patina of depth of something profound. There is no profundity here, just none. And in terms of historical detail, none of the like actual detail of like how they live, what they eat, any of that, like that seemed fine to me. I'm not like an expert, but like I know enough about historical stuff to where it's really bad I notice it. So nothing stood out to me as being like wrong. It was more like the attitudes of the characters were like just a little too modern to be believable. And also too modern, like it's the modernity of their reactions that also kind of took away some of the emotional impact of what was going on. Because to watch them try to wrap their brains around something that even in the modern day people kind of struggle with, and to like have their historical sensibilities really, really challenged by what goes on in this book, that would have been, again, psychologically, emotionally an interesting thing to unpack. But because there's just kind of like, we pay lip service to how shocked they are by something, or how like, well, obviously for the times we don't think this is fine because we're living in a different time. But also what they actually do about it and how they ultimately feel about it. It's not like a big like journey to arrive at understanding or condoning or whatever. Like they're like not fine with it because they're supposed to be not fine with it because like the historical time, but then they come around to being fine with it. And there's not a lot of like emotional progress between A and B. It's just like, I don't know why we're okay with it now, but I guess we're okay with it now. And there's like characters that like we're told, you know, have this great affection for each other. Or they care a lot about what happens to them. And I'm like, I guess I believe you. I've not witnessed this myself, but I suppose you're not lying to me that they care. It's just such a nothing burger, like the whole time. And it's like written in a way where it thinks it's like doing something, and you're like, but where? Which is kind of the big problem with Wolf Hall and Essex Serpent, although those actively pissed me off. This one was more of like a, where's the cream filling? There's just like nothing here. And I kept waiting and waiting. I was like, maybe it's a slow burn. Maybe it's like, it really takes a minute to like get its engine going. And then I was finished with the book and I was like, nope. There's just nothing here. There's just nothing here. It's such a cool cover. And again, the premise itself, nothing really wrong with the premise. It just, for that premise, for the plot of this book to be interesting, to be worth reading, to have anything profound to say, we would have to be doing a deep dive on the characters. And we are just not doing that. So, again, what is the point of this? And I think I saw some people saying that too, that like marketing is the reason why this got so popular, because like the cover is great. And like what it seems to promise when it says a haunting and magical and full of surprises, that it's like, it's going to be this like austere, gothic, magical realism mystery about this like really oppressed, you know, Dutch society. And there's like something bubbling beneath the surface, and the miniaturist, like why is there a miniaturist? That's so, you know, what's going on? Mesmerizing and suspenseful, tantalizing, beautifully poised, exquisitely detailed. Like, is it though? Like, the descriptions of the pieces created by the miniaturist, yeah, okay, those are pretty detailed. They're probably the most enjoyable part of the book is the descriptions of all the miniatures that the miniaturist is making. I was like, that sounds cool as hell. I would like to see that. But, like, my God. Such boring people, or at least I'm not being given a window into what makes them interesting. So there's like, again, there's some pretty harrowing stuff that happens here, and I feel like a monster when I'm reading it because like I feel nothing, and it's like, it's bad. It's pretty bad stuff, but this is not gonna like emotionally wreck you. You're gonna read this and be like, is this what it's like to be a sociopath? because I feel nothing. Less than nothing. Like reading a historical book that was just like telling you the facts of history and included like an aside about like if these had been real people, for example, like they're not. But if they had been, I'm sure there's people with like that it did exist that whose lives could sort of map onto this, maybe not the miniaturist part. But the types of stuff that's happening to them, it's like based on like what might have happened in like this time. So if a historical textbook was just like using this as an illustrative anecdote to describe what happened to these people, I would probably feel more emotional about it than this whole ass novel ever made me feel. So I own the sequel. There's a sequel to this, which is, what is it called? The House of Fortune, I think. Again, stunning cover. I think I have a signed copy, and I know what it's about. Having finished this, you can be under no illusion about what it's going to be about. And like, I kind of want to try it. I already own it, so I might like, you know, try a chapter. Because it sounds like it might actually be a little bit more interesting. But I haven't really heard anything about it besides it existing. Well, anyway, I already own it, so I may as well try. If it turns out that that book is phenomenal, then maybe I'll come back and be like, well, this book sucks, but the second one, which is amazing, couldn't exist without it, so you gotta read them both or something. Like, but this on its own? No. No. Literally, what is the point of this? Next is another book that I have owned for a very long time, and every time I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that sounds really great. I should read that. And then I just don't. And I think I have put it on several polls as well, and it never wins. Just blame my patrons for everything. Anyway, that is The Lost Queen by Signe Pike. And this is, I think, historical fiction fantasy. For sure historical fiction, but I think it's fantastical as well. And it's blurbed by Linnea Hartsoeker, who wrote The Half-Drowned King, and I love The Half-Drowned King. The other people blurbing it, I'm not familiar with, so that's neither here nor there. I remember seeing a review for it on Goodreads. Oh yeah, I have a copy with a book plate, but I got it from a used bookstore. It gives me pause that it says already being compared to Outlander and Mists of Avalon. It's like, well, Outlander is not great. I get that that'd be the kind of comparison a publisher would want to make because Outlander is very popular. I remember seeing like a pretty long review on Goodreads of somebody that I read it, and that review itself was so compelling to me that it made me want to read this book. Anyway, it just sounds very sweeping and engrossing and atmospheric, and it sounds like something that I could adore, but we'll see. Anyway, that's why it's on the list. The Lost Queen by Signe Pike is fine. This is not the worst book I've read for this challenge, whatever thing. It's not the best. It's very forgettable. So the most interesting thing about this is that it's about a character that was like forgotten, is the Lost Queen. And there's an author's note. The author's note was the most interesting part of this whole book, is that like the Langoreth, I know I'm saying that wrong. Langoreth? Anyway, so like with the Arthurian legends and Arthurian myths and stuff, there's like a lot of where they came from and other things that might have been like people might have been drawing from or combining when the Arthur myths kind of took shape. And so like the person who they sort of think was a heavy inspiration for the character that became known as Merlin, the real person who that might have been based on is Lilican, her twin brother. And then she's obviously a person in history, the sister of this person. And so the author was like looking into this history, or stumbled on this history fact, and some facts about Langoreth, like what her life was supposed to, what we know about what her life was supposed to have been like, and what she went through. And she was like, wow, like I've never heard of this person. That's crazy. We've like totally forgotten about her. She's the Lost Queen. We should tell a story that like centers her. And like, I'm sorry, but everyone else's story is so much more interesting in this book. Like, I know that the entire point of this book is to center her, but everyone else seems to be living a way more interesting life. Sorry. There might have been a way to tell this in a way that was more interesting, to where like her story, though the events of it are less interesting and engaging, that she herself has written so engagingly that you would be really good. But the writing is just like fine. It's not bad. It's like fine. And in the meantime, like her twin brother, her like foster brother, her husband, the man that she's in love with, who are not the same person, What we hear about them and like what they're doing off screen when they're not with Langoreth sounds so much more interesting. Sorry. So, and then it also seems like, so like from the author's note, the stuff that the author's note comes at the end because the stuff that she says about her would be kind of spoilery for the book. But the stuff that she says are like what she found out about Langoreth, which made her want to write this. Like the stuff that stuff is like at the very end of this book where that finally comes up. And it takes the whole book to get there. And I think there's 2 more books. I think this is a trilogy. And it really does seem like too little butter scraped over too much bread. Like, it already seems like Langoreth is like, there's a kind of a, like, that's not true. I'm not going to say every time a figure is like lost to history that it's because they were boring. It's like, oh, there's a reason. But sometimes there's a reason. Sometimes it's because this one wasn't that interesting. This story isn't that compelling. So she seems like a character that, like, if we were going to do a story about Lilican, who's like the OG Merlin, and then like more heavily also has a really, really prominently featured secondary character, Langoreth, that might be kind of good, because it's like there's enough there to be of interest, not enough to be its own trilogy, because we already have a bunch of time skips in here just to kind of like get through to some more interesting bits, and then there's going to be 2 more books. I just feel like maybe if this had been 1 book, and we did the highlights of Langoreth's life, or again, if we did a book that was like about the other people, but we just like made a decision to actively highlight her more, because she is somewhat interesting, I don't think she's got main character energy. At least not the way she's written here. This is similar to the thing with the Miniaturist, where like, I think like Langoreth's life is like objectively less interesting than the lives of a lot of the people around her. But you could, if you were a really good character writer, you could write Langoreth's story in a way where she was just like so leaping off the page, so vividly like described, that she would be worth it to have these books about. She's just so like serviceable as a protagonist, like a little bit frustrating, quite boring. She just seems very paint by number. Like when you're imagining like sort of like the type of protagonist that this is going to be, whatever you're imagining right now, it's probably exactly what she is. There's nothing to surprise you here about what she's like, about how she looks, about how she acts. And then the dialogue in this, it did veer sometimes too much for my personal taste towards something that sounded too modern, which not just the dialogue in terms of the words themselves, but also the kind of like relationship that they describe, the way that the characters talk to each other, especially the way Langoreth and like the men in her life talk to each other, and her father. It's just so modern. And any book that's going to be readable to a modern audience is going to be more modern than whatever was going on really in these times. It just like was so modern that for my level, it was like taking me out of the story, where I was like, yeah. And this has been comped to Outlander. I guess I kind of get why. She's kind of like a healer in a historical setting, and there's some romance, and she's in Scotland, but like a way, way older time. This is pre-Arthurian times. And for that, like the way that this is pre-Arthurian. So like the way that she's talking with people around her, again, it's just too bad. And then like there's things in it which, again, like when I read books that take place in this time period where I get annoyed, I kind of like the way they talk about religion. It has this like, the characters that are meant to be the characters we like or think are wise are sort of like divorced from actually like feeling these things or believing these things. They're very kind of like metatextual about it, where they're like, well, whether it be our pagan gods or the Christian gods, you know, like they're all one God really, and that it's all like belief is just, it's like did these like the characters who are these like wise men of your pagan faith, I'm sorry, did they go to like get a liberal arts degree to have this kind of like comparative religions view on this? Like what? They would be zealous in their paganism. So that kind of takes me out of the story. It's like a little too self-aware. And yeah, again, like the sort of like, there's a way to do like an old-timey fierce woman feminism that doesn't read as modern. Does that make sense? Like where, because there were absolutely really fierce, independent, powerful women back in the day. But like the way they spoke and the way they thought of themselves and the way other people thought of them was just so different from how we think of that now, which is in no way to diminish their strength and power and independence. But it would just be like a very different mindset about it, both for themselves and for the people around them, this just feels too like girl bossy 2010s feminism, where I'm like, don't like that. And then again, the character, like for the comp to Outlander, she did sometimes remind me of Claire. And with Claire, she's not as bad as Claire, but then in another way, she's worse than Claire. So like Claire in Outlander has time traveled back to like ye olde Scotland. And she like is a historian, or is the daughter of a historian, I forgot. And so she like is aware of like what the times were like and a lot of like information about it. So she, more than anyone, should be like fully aware of how little rights that she has in this time period, and should know that like, as however aggravating, frustrating, and offensive it is, to like shut the fuck up, because you don't have any rights as a woman in this time period. So like, do you want to die? Like I'm not saying you should think it's good or fair, but do you want to die? So when she would like mouth off to people, you'd be like, Claire, I know you know better than this. So this character isn't time traveling. She's like born and raised in this time period. This isn't a time travel story. She's like of pre-Arthurian Britain. And the way that she's like indignant sometimes about stuff is very like, I'm sorry, are you not aware of the time that you live in? Where is this coming from, huh? So again, that's kind of irritating to me. It's by no means the worst that I've read that's like that, but it's just like, it's already not that interesting a book and not that interesting a story, and Langorith is not that interesting of a character, and then it's giving this kind of like modern thing that is also just kind of taking me out of the story. So it was kind of a slog to get through. It's not bad. If you really like Langorith and you find her really compelling and you find the romance in it compelling, I could see you really enjoying this, but I don't think it's especially atmospheric or transportive or like historically vivid, and I didn't walk away from it feeling like, wow, Langorith, like how could history have forgotten her? I'm like, oh, I kind of get why history forgot about her. Sorry. Yeah, oh, this was blurb. I was actually just thinking about this as a comp. I love The Half-Drowned King by Linnea Hartsoeker, and I was about to say, when I was thinking about like the historical feminism thing and how you can absolutely do that without it coming off modern, what I was thinking of was actually The Sea Queen, which is the second book. It's actually called The Half-Drowned King is the first book, but what is the series called? I always forget. Is it called The Golden Wolf Saga? I think it is. Anyway, it's this Half-Drowned King, the Sea Queen, and the Golden Wolf. The second one, the Sea Queen, is the one that all three books prominently feature a female character, but like the Sea Queen especially features her. And I love her as a character, and I love her story, and it's so compelling. And she is a character that feels very like vividly historically realized as like a powerful woman in her time. So I'm kind of disappointed that Linnea Hartsoeker is blurbing this. The Myths of Avalon for a New Generation, Pike vividly recreates both the magic and brutality of early medieval Britain, replete with betrayals and love affairs, battles and escapes, an unforgettable heroine at the center of it all, a gripping historical novel. Well, that's nice that she liked it, but Linnea, yours is better. You did much better. So if you're looking for that, I would recommend Linnea's books over this in a heartbeat. It's my 2 cents. Anyway, so this is like 2.53 stars, probably. Like, it's not bad. It's just like, it's not really doing anything that I especially needed in my life. The top of the stack now, that it's been reorganized 3 times, is Disquiet Gods by Christopher Rocchio. I started this when it came out, and then because I didn't have, like a live show or anything scheduled, then I kind of fell behind on it, and then it had been too long, and I was like, oh shoot, I think I would have to restart it again if I wanted to finish it. I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that at some point, and then I just didn't, and it's been more than half a year now since it came out. I definitely need to restart it. I mean, I kind of remember it, but would be best to restart it. So yeah, if you don't know, Disquiet Gods is the 7th book? I always get confused because like it got split up there in the middle into more books than it was originally supposed to be. I have them all. 1, 2, 3. This is the 6th book. And then there will be 7? I think that's correct. Okay, anyway. So yeah, I read like a quarter of this, I think. But yeah, I have to start over again. Actually read it. This is basically taking the place that Lightbringer took last year. So this is the Lightbringer of 2025. Disquiet Gods by Christopher Rocchio. And this is the shiny one. I actually did go and buy, now that they re-released it, in the matte one, but I also don't know where I put it. But anyway, I finally read it, and I liked it. Just this series is such a mixed bag for me, because like the highs are so high. I really love so many things about it, but the cilantro is getting stronger with each one, and I suspect that the very ending of this series is going to be a bowl of cilantro. By which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know where I said this. It might have been in like wherever I talked about the last book in this series, that like there are things in this that are like the author's worldview isn't like subtext, it is like text. Or I should say, it previously was subtext, the subtext was getting stronger, and now it's like full on text. And it's not a worldview that I share. So when it comes up, I'm like, I don't love this. And so the comparison I made, or why I still love the series, even though that's in it, is that like I love Mexican food, but cilantro, I have like the gene that makes cilantro taste like soap. So like I don't like cilantro because I don't like soap in my food. But I love Mexican food, and so I love Mexican food so much that I'm willing to put up with some soapiness in it, because there's like always cilantro in Mexican food. It's inescapable. Even if you ask for no cilantro, some part of it has cilantro in it. So that's how I am like, this series like has some cilantro in it, but I really love it, so I'm willing to put up with some cilantro. But it's getting to be very cilantro heavy, so that's kind of a struggle for me. Also, from the beginning, I clocked some of his references and some of his influences, and when I don't always clock all of his references, mostly because like I'm not always familiar with the thing that he's referencing, but because when I do clock his references, they are so obvious and on the nose, and like they're not references so much as they are just like in music when you're sampling. Like it's like straight up just like copy pasting things into here. And so I noticed a ton of Kingdom of Heaven in the first book. In his other books, there's been other stuff. There's obviously a ton of Book of the New Sun throughout. In this one, it was several moments where it was giving Blade Runner 2049. One of them I talked about on my Insta story. It's like, I mean, maybe this is me projecting. Maybe this is like totally unfair of me, because it's not a straight quote. But if you've seen 2049, the scene where he's talking at the computer to prove that he's on baseline, he's quoting Pale Fire by Nabokov. And we have like, it's like pretty unusual words to find, especially in quick succession, because the poem that he's using, what they're using the text from in the movie, is like within cells interlinked, within cells interlinked, within cells interlinked, and it's like a blood black nothingness, something something, within cells interlinked, and a stem dreadfully distinct against the dark, something like that. So here on these 2 pages, we have the word interlinked on the first page and dreadfully distinct on the next page. And I was like, what? And then I won't say what it is because it's kind of spoilery. It's extremely spoilery for the series and for this book. But there's a scene in this that, since I was already on like 2049 brain, when this scene happened, I was like, this scene is a scene from Blade Runner 2049. Really spoilery for 2049. It would just be like super spoilery. But if you've seen the film and if you've read this book, there's a scene towards the end, very near the end, that tell me that's not ripped straight out of 2049. Which, like, it makes sense why that would be the kind of like point of reference for a lot of this stuff, because like the themes that 2049 is interested in exploring are like on topic for what this book seems to be interested in exploring. It's just that 2049's conclusions, if they can be called that, or the sort of where the audience is sort of meant to land on this stuff when watching 2049, the point it seems to trying to be making, or the sort of direction 2049 is kind of going, is a quite different direction from this. So they're like they're both having the same conversation, but they're not agreeing. So this book, I wouldn't say it's like a clap back at 2049 or anything. In fact, I get the feeling that he probably likes 2049. That's why he's referencing it. But I also get the feeling that he probably watched 2049 and was like, I love this, if only it was making the correct point. Don't worry, I'll do it. And the correct point is a very cilantro-y point. So I prefer 2049. But nonetheless, this is still an epic installment. I'm still super invested in this, and I'm really excited to see the conclusion. Although, again, I think I know what type of conclusion it's gonna be, but I'm, prepared for it, so Anyway, I think, like, his creativity and the sort of, like, expansiveness of the story, the scope of it, and the amount of different ideas he's pulling from, because, like, he is sort of, like, copy-pasting a ton of ideas. But it's, like, to have, like, combined so many different ideas into here, like, is itself kind of impressive. It's, like, the ultimate fusion food. Because I think, like, if you don't know what he's referencing, and he's usually referencing quite quality things, so he's got good taste. And if you don't know that he's referencing something, it wouldn't be obvious to you that he is. It's just, like, because there's lots of stuff, again, that, like, it's not something I'm familiar with, so I'm not clocking it. But I know it's there, because I know, like, you don't know what you don't know, but I mean, when it's there and I do recognize it, it is so recognizable that I'm sure there's stuff here. And there's stuff that, like, after the fact, where, like, I wasn't familiar with it, but then I read it later, and now, like, either when I was reading that thing later, I remembered this and went, oh shoot, he was referencing this, because, like, this is seeming familiar to me, and this predates it. So, like, oh. So, yeah, like, I have filled that in sometimes and been like, oh, there's even more there being copycatted. But, like, one of the things that, like, was copycat, it was disappointing to me because I thought it was such a cool and original idea. And I still think it's a cool and original idea. It's just he didn't come up with it. And I was giving him credit for it. It's something that he does in Kingdoms of Death, I think it was, where it happens. Anyway, but then I read the thing that he definitely drew that idea from, and I was like, oh. Well, it's still a cool idea, but I guess credit does not go to you for it. So, anyway, still really enjoyed it. Still really great. Really looking forward to reading the rest of the series. And I do still think it's impressive, despite all of the references. Maybe because of the references. I don't know. Like, it like, bothers me, but it doesn't. Just like the cilantro-y bits. Like, it bothers me, but I'm like, okay, I'm willing to hear you out. Like, you're not going to convince me, obviously, but let's go with your thing, and let's, like, kind of see where that goes. Let's see your vision. But I guess we'll see how it ends. Maybe my tune will change when I see the very ending. But right now, it's very, like, you have a clear position on this. I see it, and I suppose I respect it, but I do not hold that position. So, anyway, glad to have finally read it. And, yeah, on to Shadows Upon Time, which is much longer than this one. Jesus, Shadows Upon Time is so long. But also, I think I might watch 2049 tonight, because I've been wanting to watch that for a long time, or rewatch that. So maybe tonight's the night. Anyway, so certainly one of the best books from this project. Next up is a book that has been on many a poll for my Patreon. It has come close to winning so many times, but it never won, and I kind of stopped putting it on the poll because it became more like a running joke, and I started to feel bad. Anyway, I'm just gonna read it. I'm gonna read it myself. And it's Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James, which I have owned pretty much since it came out. And I have wanted to read it since it came out. And you know, fine. If y'all refuse to let this win the poll, I'm just gonna read it on my own. You can just miss out. I'm talking to my patrons, not you personally who's watching this video. Unless you're one of my patrons, in which case I am talking to you personally. I've heard that it's good, and I've heard that it's really harrowing. That, like, there's trigger warnings abound. There's, like, very, very harrowing content in here. So, buckle up, I guess. I also own another Marlon James book that I've never read any Marlon James, but I have this. And I also have, it's yellow. What's it called? Is it listed on here somewhere? Yeah, author of A Brief History of 7 Killings. That's the other Marlon James book I own. So hopefully I like this, and hopefully I want to read the other one. I've put the other one on polls before as well. Never wins, obviously. Last year, there were like 3 books I DNF'd, I think. It was definitely more than 1. This year, I have not been letting myself DNF almost any of them. I say almost because the second to last book, which I started in January, this is how far I got, and I'm gonna call it red on Goodreads, because, like, it's more than halfway. I did not like this, obviously, because I'm DNFing it. But it's one of the best written things that I've ever DNF'd, by which I mean, like, the writing itself, like, the prose. The writing itself, the prose, is a lot of the time quite excellent. It is, but at the same time, that kind of makes me mad, because I feel like this book, obviously there's people that love it, so they would disagree with me about this, but it feels like it's hiding behind that. Like it's doing that instead of being a good book. Like bad food covered in a fancy sauce. I'm always using food metaphors, but they just come to mind. Or like, yeah, no, we're gonna stick with that one. It's like this veneer, this patina of profundity that is, like, if you strip that back, not just like good prose, but also slightly convoluted prose, if you sort of like push through the thorns of all that, there's not that much there under it. It's like if you were to serve like really like ordinary food, but like plated up in a way where you get like the tiny piece of it in the center of a giant plate with a sauce drizzled, you'd be like, your brain is like, oh, this is fancy. So like I should like take a moment to like savor it and assume that these flavors are complex, as opposed to like realizing that, oh, actually this was like somebody's like corn dog that they cut up in a fancy way. Like that's kind of the vibe it's giving me, where it's like the presentation is so sort of like good in the sense that it is genuinely good prose, but it's being used to mask a lack of anything underneath. And I shouldn't say lack of anything, but first of all, it does not need to be this long. I haven't finished it yet, obviously, but so far I did not see anything that justified that length. And it is also, the other thing that it's doing is like constantly shocking you. And I think it's also hiding behind that. I think behind the fancy prose, behind the convoluted like narration style that makes it a little difficult to follow, and behind the constant shocking you with horrifying triggering things, it's relying on those three things to keep you so busy, like mentally, that you're not going to notice that there really isn't anything there. There's nothing there to like actually engage with, because you're just so busy first trying to understand what the heck's going on, and second of all trying to like emotionally get over what you're being told because it's harrowing. And by the time you've done that, you're like, wow, I'm assuming, because like that was quite a trial for me mentally and emotionally, so that must mean it was a profound experience. But that's actually not true. It's really manipulative. And so that's what I'm getting out of this. And maybe if I finish this, maybe at the very end, I would like be like, oh, actually it was all worth it. It actually was all, this all needed to be the way it is, but I seriously doubt it. I love Gene Wolfe. I still love the works of Neil Gaiman. I hate Neil Gaiman the person, but like that doesn't change how I felt about his literature. And I love First Law. I have no issue with reading about unlikable protagonists, about reading really harrowing things happening either to them or because they are enacting it. I have no issue reading about like really triggering topics, really harrowing things, you know, like SA and other types of abuse and all kinds of bizarre abuse also, like really uncommon creative ways of being really horrible. And I have no issue, I shouldn't say no issue, but I'm perfectly willing to read something and love something that is told in a convoluted way. Again, see Gene Wolfe. I did sort of compare this quite frequently, not on purpose, but it's sort of like the best comparison that my mind could conjure was The Book of the New Sun. It's nothing like The Book of the New Sun in terms of like what this is about. The Book of the New Sun is told in a way that is intentionally convoluted, and is also told with very like beautiful prose, and also has a protagonist doing terrible things, and there's often quite terrible things being portrayed that are quite shocking or quite uncomfortable. But Book of the New Sun, when it rewards you for peeling back those layers. It rewards you for like wading through that and trying to navigate it and trying to figure it out, because there's something there. Here, I was like struggling to understand what was going on, but then every time I did, because part of the reason I started this in January and I've only just now finished it is because I kept restarting it. Because I kept being like, wait, what? I think I'm not giving this my all. I need to start over. I don't know if I'm getting this. I need to start over. I don't know, like, if I'm giving this a fair shake. I need to start over. And I've done that multiple times. And now this is how far I got. And it did not reward that. Every time I went back to be like, no, hold on, I don't know that I got that. No, hold on, wait, what is he trying to say here? I don't know that I'm fully grasping it. Have I fully received what is supposed to be happening here? What he's supposed to be implying here? And every time I went back to do that, I was just like, oh, yeah, okay. So then I'd be like, okay, now I've I feel better because I'm less confused, but I'm like, that's all I feel is less confused. I'm not like, oh, never, ever that. It was always just like, okay, I get it now, I think. Okay, I think I get it. Okay. But I'm like, but why? Why are we doing this? Like, what is the point of this? And I do not mean that a book needs to be a fable, that there needs to be a point to it in the sense of a morality tale. And I certainly don't mean that there needs to be a mystery box. I mean, I love reading Sally Rooney. I love reading First Law. Those books are, you know, meandering character, plotless, whatever. Like, certainly not morality tales. But there's still like a point to it in the sense of the author's trying to accomplish something. The author has a reason for telling this story. What is that reason? And it seems to me the reason here is just like it's a writing exercise. It's an exercise in like, can I confuse and horrify you into believing that this is profound? Didn't work on me. Sorry. And there is some like interesting, because this has been comped to Game of Thrones. It's like it's Game of Thrones if Game of Thrones was about like African mythology or something like that. And first of all, people comp everything to Game of Thrones, so I didn't exactly go into it being expecting that. But when people do that, I kind of make the assumption that the reason they're doing that, the thing that I can take away from that that's actually information, is that it's probably going to be either really grand in scope, like there's going to be like a lot of characters and a lot of politics or something, or it's grimdark. And I'm like, those are the reasons usually something's comped to Game of Thrones. So it's probably gonna be nothing like Game of Thrones, but I can probably expect lots of politics with a complicated story and or grimdark. And here, it's certainly grimdark, much grimmer than anything in A Song of Ice and Fire. But the thing I was most horrified by was myself, because it's just an onslaught of horror constantly that I felt nothing about it, because I never felt invested in the characters, I never felt invested in the world. Mostly I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on and constantly being assaulted with like horrifying concepts and images, and I just felt nothing about it, and I felt awful for not feeling anything about it, because like I'd be reading these chapters and I'm like, wow, that's really disgusting. Wow, that's really awful. But I didn't feel any kind of way about it. I was just like, dang. Yuck. And that makes me feel hollow and awful, that I'm so desensitized because I'm not invested in this. It's just like constant and to no purpose. Like, earlier this year I read, what's it called? Red cover, Night on the Cover. It's like grimdark medieval horror. It's by Christopher Buehlman. Oh my god. Between Two Fires? Is that? Anyway, well, I'll put it up. Like, I think that's what it was. And then, anyway, I liked it. And I did, when I reviewed it, when I talked about it with my patrons, because we did read it together, and then when also, like, in my wrap-up when I talked about it, I talked about how it's a book that, you know, your mileage may vary, you may disagree with me, that it's the horrors it depicts is to a purpose. But, like, my position is that I do not object to horrible things being depicted in a book if it's to a purpose. Like, I don't say flat. There's some people that are like, you should never, ever, ever depict on-page essay in a book, period. There's no reason for it. I don't think that's true. I think it's lazy to lean on that for horror and shock. I think it's lazy to lean on that to convey villainy, but I don't think it's off the table. I think there are valid reasons to include that in your story. Just like any kind of like brutality, violence, gore, I don't think that's off the table, and I don't think the only use of it is to just suddenly like amp up the shock and horror. It can be really vital to the story that you're telling that you include these things. And so when I read Between Two Fires, it was leaning towards like overusing those things, but to me, the story it was telling and what the point of it all was, like what seemed to be the author's purpose in writing the story, did necessitate wading in some of that territory. And to me, I was like, this is pretty harrowing to read, so be warned, and you might think it's too much. I think it's like borderline too much, but to me there's a clear reason why this is being included, and it's necessary to what this book is trying to accomplish. And so it's worth it to me to wade through those horrors if that's like, one, for a reason, and two, it's a reason that I'm interested in, it's a good book. There's no reason for it here that I can discern, and the book itself isn't that good. The book is just like a confusing slog. And again, it's it's confusing in the sense of like it's hard to follow, intentionally hard to follow, but not impossible. So you always just have to keep rereading things and being like, oh, okay, I get it. Wait, who is he talking to right now? Oh, because there's this like weird inclusion of second person because like the narrator is sort of telling their story to someone, and then they address the person they're telling the story to periodically without warning a lot of the time, and they speak in riddles, and they speak in this really staccato way, and they bring in a lot of like imagery and metaphor, and they contradict themselves all the time. So it's just like really annoying to have to keep rereading stuff because you're like, wait, what is he saying is happening? Oh, okay, I think I get it. But I don't feel after that like, oh wow, I understand it now. I'm just like, why did we have to say it in a way that was so complicated and so, like, there was an easier way to convey this. This is needlessly confusing. And again, I like the Book of the New Sun. I like Gene Wolfe. When he makes things difficult to understand, occasionally, even with Gene Wolfe, I'll be like, did you need to make it that hard to understand this? But nonetheless, there's usually, for me anyway, a clear narrative reason why he's doing this. Why this character would not have commented on this, and so you don't get to find this out. You can find it out if you piece together context clues because the information is there, but the character who's telling you this story would have no reason to bring it up, and so they're not going to tell you. Like, that's to me is, I mean, it's a choice to be that kind of dedicated to narrator consistency as opposed to giving your reader some information they might need or want. But there's like a reason for that then. It's a commitment to this sort of like method writing, which is what I called it when I reviewed Book of the New Sun, where here it doesn't seem like a commitment to the voice of this narrator. The commitment is to confusion and to shock value. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that for its own sake. If I can discern a purpose for those things, for obfuscation, confusion, horror, shock, etc., I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with it. Some of my all-time favorite books fall into those categories. This didn't earn it. Didn't earn being this confusing and this horrifying. It was just misery. Both because it was like a slog and confusing, so it was just really annoying and took forever to get through as far as I did. And also miserable because the text itself, when you actually understand what's happening, is just nonstop, like, and it was also to the point where it's like when like a kid first reaches young adulthood, and so they start wanting to like put swear words into everything they say and include sexual jokes in everything they say because they think it's like so grown up to do that and so edgy to do that, but like actual grown-ups who've been swearing and like don't think sex is a novel idea don't do that. So you actually seem more childish for constantly including swear words and sexual innuendo in what you're saying. That was also this because like every single character, every single page, every single word out of everyone's mouth included swear words and then either actual descriptions of like horrifying sexual acts or like the way they would speak would be like turns of phrase and idioms that all reference horrifying sex. Like constantly. And I was like, do you guys truly have nothing else going on in your lives that you could possibly be referencing or using as a metaphor? Nothing whatsoever? Like, did you just reach adulthood? Did you just figure out what sex is? You seem very obsessed with it. Like, you can't make any comparison to anything ever without bringing that into it. I feel like I was sounding like my mom because like I swear all the time. I swear like a sailor. My mom is always saying how like she thinks it's just uncreative. That like if the only thing that you can say is a swear word, that there's more, you're not using language creatively. And my answer to that is like, but why limit the tools in your toolbox? So I agree that leaning on horrors in books is not necessary, but you can include it. That's my position on swearing. Like leaning on swearing instead of saying anything else is lazy and boring. But to exclude that from your vocabulary is also not good. Like you should have all the tools at your disposal. That's how I feel about like essay and violence in books. That's how I feel about using swear words. Don't lean on those things. Don't overuse those things, but they are tools in your toolbox for a reason. This is overusing all of those things and offering nothing else. This didn't leave me with any like profound questions to ponder or didn't at all ever make me go, huh, that's food for thought. It just made me go, yuck. Okay, but I get it. I'm good. Next is a book that I don't really know why. I kind of know why I own this. Okay, anyway. It's For the Wolf by Hannah Witten, and if this cover looks unfamiliar to you, that's kind of the main reason I have this, is because this is a special edition, like, dust jacket. This is what the cover normally looks like. And that's the main reason I have this, is because the artist that did these dust jackets is one of my favorite, like, bookish artists. She does a lot of, like, book box, custom, special dust jacket, art print, bookmark type of stuff. And so it's because I follow her. She shared some of the art she was doing for this, and I was like, ooh. And I was like, I guess I want this book, because sure, fine. Maybe I'll love it. I think it's a Red Riding Hood retelling. I own both because it was like I bought them together, the special editions of For the Wolf, and then the second one is For the Throne, I think. Hopefully I'll like it because I do like these dust jackets and I like to support artists that I like. This is the first book that I started for this project, and it is the last one that I finished. And that is For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. This book is just nothing. It's nothing. It's giving nothing. Oh my gosh. First of all, if you're expecting a Red Riding Hood retelling, it is not. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which, like, very, like, it has a woman called Red with a red cloak, and she goes into a forest. But everything else is Beauty and the Beast. So it's like it's a Trojan horse for Beauty and the Beast. It's coming in the shape of Red Riding Hood, but it's like, just kidding, it's another Beauty and the Beast retelling. Maybe that's why I did it, because it's like, oh, everyone's doing Beauty and the Beast retelling, so I'm gonna make everyone think this is Red Riding Hood, but it's Beauty and the Beast. The lore, this is really long for what it is. The lore makes zero sense. When I started it, I literally was like, posting in my Discord, like, has anyone read this, and am I stupid? Or does this lore not make any sense? Very kindly, my patrons were like, well, it can't be that you're stupid. I was like, I mean, it definitely can. But, like, it's not even like where I've read books where it's like, well, the logical, like, conclusion of this doesn't really fit what's going on here. Like, it's not like with Way of Kings where I'm like, the setup here, if you were to really fully consider the ramifications of this isn't how this would work. Like, what you're saying is happening doesn't fully make sense if you were to, like, do the thought exercise of how people would respond to that or something like that. That is not what I mean. I mean, like, literally when it's telling you the lore, I'm like, I don't get it. Maybe it does work. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get what it is you're supposed to believe here. So, because, like, this people, they live on the edge of this forest, and it's like a magical forest, and it's this, like, religious cult, and, like, there's two sisters, and the red one, the protagonist, Red, her name is like Redaris or something, and they call her Red, and it's like the most, I needed her name to be abbreviated to Red, so what name can I give her that could be abbreviated to Red? Redaris. It's like, okay, whatever. So anyway, they live, like, the lore, like the beliefs of this cult, like, she has to be sacrificed to the wolf, who's like this good/bad thing that's in the forest, and there's these, like, 5 kings that are trapped in the woods, and they're, like, praying for the second coming, the return of the 5 kings, and, like, by giving a daughter to the wolf who's, like, keeping them trapped, they'll, like, appease the wolf, but that will also help in the quest of returning the 5 kings. I don't understand. And I also don't know why they want the return of the 5 kings, because, like, it's just that, oh, they'll return. It's like, but why do we want that? Like, okay, what happens when they return? Couldn't tell ya. So anyway, naturally, I'm sure you'll be shocked to learn that when Redaris goes to the forest to be sacrificed to the wolf turns out to be a brooding emo dude who she falls in love with. And the reason he's called the wolf is the dumbest part of this book. It's because in, like, whatever language is in this world, wolf and warden, in, like, the word is, like, either the same word or a really similar word. So he was originally the warden of the forest, but then that got turned into the wolf, and that got turned into, like, over time he is a wolf. Which is just like, so you're saying in this Red Riding Hood, this Red Riding Hood retelling, we don't even have a wolf. And we really don't even have a beast, because, like, I was like, okay, obviously he's gonna be the love interest, but I was assuming there'd be, like, some wolfishness to get, even for our Beauty and the Beast retelling, for the beastiness to be wolf-like, to be this lupine beastiness. But no, He's literally just a guy. He's a guy in the woods who's like brooding and emo and drinks a lot of coffee. Like, it's said over and over again that he/his area, his domain, his library, in the middle of the forest where they're living on nothing and have resource, like very limited resources because they're stuck in the woods. He smells like coffee, his stuff smells like coffee, his clothes smell like coffee. And like when they go to like on their trucks to like resupply, they always get coffee. And like, obviously this is a fantasy world, so you can do whatever you want, but it's the tone and the vibe of what this world is supposed to be like. It's like the uppermost north. It's like snowy and cold, the forest. It's giving, you know, Scandinavian, Icelandic, you know, German, something like that, you know, like very, very northern cold forest. And coffee does not, like nowadays, I guess we do associate Scandinavians with coffee because Scandinavians love coffee, you know, same, but it's not native there. Like that's the result of like global trade that Scandinavians can drink as much coffee as they do because that does not naturally occur in Scandinavia. Coffee grows in really warm places. So the idea that this like these scant supplies that they have in this remote, old-timey swords and sorcery, we live on the edge of a forest where a religious cult situation, that they have a ton of coffee, that really kind of took me out of the story. Again, it's a fantasy world, so you can do whatever you want. This isn't like a historical inaccuracy thing. It was just like, you just wanted him to smell like coffee, and you probably personally like coffee, you Hannah Witten. And you were like, it's so hot when a dude smells like coffee. I'm gonna make him smell like coffee. Does it make a ton of sense? Does it kind of like enrich the world and make it feel more believable? No. But I want it to smell like coffee. Just like, is Redaris a good name? No, but I can abbreviate it to Red. Everything about this, the lore too, it's just like, I need a reason for her to be sacrificed to the forest, and I need a reason for that to actually turn out to be okay. And we're gonna write some lore around that to make that make sense. Just like, we need a reason for people to be against her, or like to be working towards a goal that's bad, and so then people wanting the Return of the Five Kings, and like, it's all such a hodgepodge where like everything was like putting the cart before the horse. Like your goal was to have a forest with a hot brooding dude in it and to get your maiden like sacrificed to him but actually fall in love with him. That's like what you wanted to write. And then everything else was kind of cobbled together around that in a way that does not make sense with itself at all and feels cobbled together and takes forever to get through. And it's not actually like hot or brooding. Like, I am not the target audience for that kind of thing. Even if I am picking up romance on purpose because I want to be reading that, which is not that often, I am not the enemies to lovers brooding bad boy girl. I'm a childhood friends to lovers gal. I'm a friends to lovers gal. Like, I'm not actually a huge fan of Pride and Prejudice. Like, I think it's well written. I think it's a pretty good story, and there's a reason it's stood the test of time. But like, I prefer Emma and Mr. Knightley. I prefer Jane and Mr. Bingley. I prefer like this whole like, I hate you, but actually secretly I love you. I'm not into it. I don't like it. Probably because this is a complete aside that has nothing to do with this book, but like, I personally pride myself on being an extremely good judge of character. I have almost never been wrong about my first impression about somebody. So it's just the notion to me that I could be that wrong about somebody and it be somebody that I would fall in love with is just so beyond belief to me. Like, the only time that's ever worked, I mean, in Pride and Prejudice it works a little bit because like there's some misinformation that causes the hatred. But if it's just like a bad vibe and then you realize you're wrong, I'm like, I have never been wrong about my vibe about somebody, let alone be able to fall in love with somebody, be that way off. So I can't really buy into it, and I don't think it's like cute or hot. Anyway, so, but that being said, I have read stories where it is the brooding bad boy, enemies to lovers, whatever. And I'm not a robot. I can be swept up in that occasionally. Trying to think of an example and coming up short. But I'm sure that it's happened. Anyway, just take my word for it. It has happened. Or at the very least, even if it's not like my cup of tea, I'm like, I get what it's doing here, and if I was into this, this would probably be quite hot. This was just so nothing. It was so like wet cardboard. Like the scenes where like he's like brooding TM and she's like, but I see you and I want to help you. It was like the so watered down copycat version of every time I've ever seen that it was so like by the numbers, like paint by number, where I was like, I can't even like believe that this is happening, like that this is yet another couple that's happening to, where I'm just like, you don't even seem like real. You literally seem like someone like wrote down this archetype and then told like an AI to like animate it. Like there was just like nothing there. And like all of the times he would say anything that would like was like he's concerned for her but is like hiding it, I was just like, this is so, I cannot put into words how on the nose and boring it is. Like it's giving nothing new, nothing unique. The characters are so boring too, like when they're like falling madly in love with each other, like Red and the wolf, like she's boring as hell too, and he's boring as hell, so I guess they deserve each other, but I'm just like, why would I root for this? Like, a love for the ages. Like, I mean, I guess, you know, like attracts like, wet cardboard to wet cardboard, you know, like they meant for each other. A brilliant dark fantasy debut. God, I wish. Drenched in atmosphere, with sharp and biting prose. Literally where? Alex E. Harrow and Aaron A. Craig, they actually do atmosphere. Girls, you're lying. Atmospheric, folkloric, and half familiar. If you ever wished Beauty and the Beast had more eldritch forest monsters and political machinations, this is the romance for you. I wish that was true about it, because that sounds fantastic. And I bet if that description, if that story had been written by Aaron A. Craig or Alex E. Harrow, it would actually be pretty decent. This is just... I struggle to put into words how nothing this is. Like, I can't even compare it to something, because I don't think it didn't make me angry. Like, it wasn't aggressively bad. It was just so nothing. It was like the absence of a book that kept trying to convince you that it is actually a book. Where there's like nothing inside. Like, it's hollow. So yeah, not a fan. So after editing everything, I realized that I never actually filmed like an outro or a conclusion. Whoops. So to wrap up, this was not my most successful. I mean, there's always quite a few misses when I do this, because there's usually, since this whole project is kind of like reading books that I just haven't for whatever reason, and sometimes it's like, man, like, I'm so glad I did this project because I finally got me to read this thing and I love it. And other times like, man, what was the reason that I didn't read that? So anyway, I'd have to go back and look and see like which year. I've done this 3 times now. I had more hits than misses, or misses than hits, or whatever. This felt like an especially bad year to me, but I could be way off on that. Again, last year I actually DNF'd a lot last year. This year I sort of like finished almost everything. And the one book I DNF'd, I did read a good amount of. So there's that, I guess. But okay, so yeah, what did I read? I read For the Wolf. Terrible. Not anger-inducing, just the absence of a book. The only one I DNF'd, Black Leopard, Red Wolf. I am really glad to kind of be done with this. It's been haunting me, because I think I said it when I was picking these books, why I picked this was like, I've been putting it on patron polls for years. It's come close to winning a few times. I think I have 2 copies of this because I think someone gifted me an arc of it, and then I also have, like, this is not the arc of it, this is the finished copy. So I just kept feeling like this was looming over me. That's why I put it on this project, and I kept thinking all this time that, like, when I finally do the thing and read it, I'm going to be like, man, I wish I'd read that sooner. That really is so good, but it's not. So I can be done with this. Disquiet Gods. You know, the cilantro is strong with this one, but I still love the series, and I still really enjoyed this installment. And also, compared to everything else I was reading for this project, this was like a much needed, like, oh, a good book. But spoilers for the new year, Alex and I are going to do a final Sun Eater chat, Alex Nieves, and I've been chatting with him about the last book. I haven't started it yet. I was like, I finally finished Disquiet Gods. You know, we should do a chat about, what's it called? Shadows Upon Time? And he was like, have you started it? And I was like, no. He's like, you're gonna have thoughts. He's like, there's a lot of cilantro in this one. I was like, Oh no. So anyway, look forward to that. Or not, you know, you're under no obligation to be excited for Sun Eater or for me or for Alex or for the combination thereof. And then The Lost Queen, kind of just, I kind of kept forgetting I owned it, put it on this project, kind of kept forgetting that it was on this project that I had to read it until I would look at the stack and I'm like, oh yeah. And then now that I have read it, I kind of forgot. I keep forgetting that I did read this. I'm like, oh yeah, I did read that. And it was fine. Miniaturist took me all year to freaking read it, and it's not good. It's not good. And it's more anger inducing because it thinks it's good. So it's very like Essex Serpent and Wolf Hall. Although Essex Serpent and Wolf Hall really enraged me. This one was just kind of like lackluster and frustrating. Or maybe like I've like calmed down in my old age. It could be a combination. And then Carrie Soto is back. My first disappointment from Taylor Jenkins. Do you see how I think this is the worst year yet? They're all like, no, 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 no. Disquiet Gods from a series that I already know I like. And then no, no, no. So yeah, like not the worst book in the world, but like for a Taylor Jenkins read book, like on that, if we're grading on that curve, this is atrocious. But it's like just like a serviceable, also quite forgettable book. 13th Child, my first miss for Erin A. Craig. Yeah, this was a terrible year. Because the other two books by her I read, neither of them was like perfect or like 5 stars, immaculate favorite all time, but were like really solid, where I was like, this is an author I can rely on to like deliver specific things. And then apparently not, cannot rely. This book was also really like lackluster and thought it was more, pretended to be more. I feel very lied to this year. And then Foundryside, which I kind of knew that I wouldn't like or had strong reason to suspect that I wouldn't like, and then I didn't like it. So you guys, sometimes you're right about me. Sometimes you're super wrong, as we're about to get to in the next one. But yeah, no one thought I was gonna like this, and I didn't. But you thought I wouldn't like Anxious People, and this is possibly my favorite book from this whole project. Although, or at least it's in the top 3. Joke's on you. This was phenomenal. This is like the one book that's like actually fulfilled the wish of this project, which is, you know, that book that you've just been not reading and not reading and not reading, and you're going to be so grateful when you finally read it. You'll be like, oh my gosh, that was so good. I should have read it sooner. This one, finally, one of the books did do that for me. So very, very good. Love it. Want to read more Friedrich Bachman. Stephen King letting me down. I have actually read a lot of Stephen King this year, including this. And this is the worst Stephen King book that I read this year. Is that true? Feels true. Yeah, I think that's true. Anyway, Stephen King doing character work and fairy tale-esque stuff, like, should be good. And the beginning was so good. The beginning was really, really good. If I was just reading the beginning, this would be possibly my favorite book in the whole project. But unfortunately, there's a whole rest of the book to get through, and that is not good. So, and then All's Well, which was so good. This, Anxious People, and Disquiet Gods. Although Disquiet Gods has cilantro in it. This doesn't have cilantro in it. And Anxious People does not have cilantro in it. So, this and Anxious People, probably winners of this whole project. This is so good. I stand by that. Chef's kiss, immaculate. This is how you do a retelling. This is why you do a retelling. Knocked my socks off. You know, praise be. And then possibly the worst book of the whole thing is the one that I started with. So it's not a great way to set the tone, but Lady Macbeth can go die. One of the worst books I've ever read in my whole life. Just, I am still speechless. What did Scotland ever do to you, Ava Reed? And there you have it. Another year successful in that I finished, not successful in that I disliked almost every book for this project. So those of you who enjoy me ranting, this is probably your favorite one of the lot because there was very little praise going on. Happy New Year, and hopefully this year's will be better in every respect for everything across the board. Okay. Bye!